Here we go, here we go, here we go for another rock and roll on this 14th of July. Rock and roll for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, truckers, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, hot color Montreal, another heat wave. The third heat wave this summer, I guess. We got a triple banger, or is it a fourth already? I think one heat wave was actually during springtime, so I gotta begin with grateful, thankful. Being grateful and thankful is great for mental health, and although I'm financially stressed, struggling on these toes now, it is hot. I think it feels like it must be close to 40, but it says like 31 when I left, and I got a little bit of that backpack donation. Thank you for those donations of a little bit of that soup, a little bit of that cucumber. It's always good to have around, you know, rock and rolling. And always for the truckers, the bakers, the nurses, the firefighters, and the butchers, the grocery store clerks, all those on the field now. Look at this beautiful beauty. It's a little bit on that blue side, and that's how we gotta get on that rock and rolling for it, and that's how we gotta get on that hydration now. And it's hot, H-O-T, H-O-T, and look at that beautiful sun. We're gonna zigzag it. I think we're gonna do a little bit of a special by the river, because Friday we went by the mountain, my second home, Mount Royal, you know. Mount Royal, my second home there in the Mistress and the Belvedere, so I gotta just go by the river sometimes, and just gonna make sure that I cross the street safely, you know. Sometimes you just gotta cross the street on the safe side of things, and you know, you got the little children there, so I circumvent to make sure they get in the car safely. And here's one way, so then technically they can only come by that side, you know. So you gotta be, of course, on the prudent side, and prudence and added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, because I'm in the public, and that's how I roll as a citizen, artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, analyst, theorist, and mystic. And you know, I have Asperger's, so I'm a little Aspies. We can be a bit on the weird, awkward, more bizarre, odd ways when we interact with the rest of the fellow other citizens, the 99.56%, you know. And of course, I always have to build bridges between myself as a neurodivergent who has Asperger's and my fellow 99.56%, the vast majority of the community across the empire. Let's go. Rock and roll for the 10, the 50, and the 3, the 10 provinces, 50 states, and 3 territories. Dragon vs. Trump Special Edition. This Canadian Quebecer was born 3 times, previous incarnations, past lives. Once was born as a woman in the United States post 70-76, twice as a man, served in the United States Armed Forces, 2 different wars, 156 years apart. Just read George Patton's 3 Glass Darkly. It's hot and humid, and we got a little bit of that warning, but now it seems to be dissipating. The sun pierced the clouds. It was dark gray, cloudy for like a few hours, you know, really muggy. And I think it's clear, like, it was really because I did laundry, and I did laundry, so I put it outside in the sun, and it was a bit very dark, very gray, very like yellowish, so there was a smog warning. But now it seems to be better. In the past 44 minutes, it seems to have been dissipating a lot, so that's always something we have to appreciate when we go in nature, you know, because that's where we're heading, from civilization and nature. And it's a Dragon vs. Trump Imperial Thelemik edition. Yours truly, pledge allegiance, encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. It's a freestyle edition as we go unedited. Raw, real revolutionary for the Aspie, androgynous, pansexual Aspie, artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, analyst, and theorist. We're gonna get into rock and roll, geopolitics, and Asperger's, and of course, gotta salute the firefighters across the 10, those fighting wildfires. And you know, go Texas, go, sending some love to Texas. And you know, last week I went to see Ballerina. I'm asking that those who did the money to a box office across the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, that they give 1% of their income, the profits, that is, the profits for Texas relief. As I put this backpack, you know, I think about food security and how all the operations that are going now, I'm going in the, enough of my face, I guess. Gonna switch it towards the sun, my Publik king, and saluting Texas, and calling all to give 1% of all the millions, the billions, which of course were made during the movie proceedings, the box office of Ballerina. And of course, tomorrow I'm gonna see another movie for $5 special. So looking for those. We're not sure what we're gonna see. Maybe we're gonna see Superman, How to Train Your Dragon, or maybe we're gonna see F1, or maybe we're gonna see Who Killed the President of Haiti. One of those 4. It's my anonymous friend will choose, and I'm gonna finance a little bit of that $5 because tomorrow Tuesday is special. But nonetheless, the gross boxing office, I'm asking for it, the profits to be at 1% donated, to Texas relief operation, as it's quite dire situation. And also asking the NFL, NBA, MLB, and major sports leagues, to support the Dragon Army initiative for the Imperial Security Service and Defense Legion and emergency response to be created in these circumstances, which we see as we're going to move towards the Democratic Imperial Republic that I'm calling for. And check past videos. In these videos we're going to discuss, of course, my philosophies, ideas, and initiatives, which is meant fundamentally, of course, the call to the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, the Democratic Imperial Republic, of course, to mass finance citizens' fitness, to establish two cooperative covenant and cooperative institutions. Turn your heads left and right before you cross the streets, and that's where we're going to go now. Gonna salute the construction workers. They build some nice buildings, and of course I will to build the four. Yours truly, always grateful, thankful. My electricity bill is paid and got rent and got that food, That's what we gotta get doing on that, and we gotta get some of that loving with the birds and flying above my head. I felt something. Let me check. No. Yes, no, maybe. The hat, let's check the hat. Auctioning this hat for $1 million. I'm auctioning the underwear. So I'm auctioning everything that I'm wearing for $1 million to give 50% to my anonymous friend. I thought I got shitted on my head, So that would be luck. Play the lotto, some things. Is that lucky? That's all, maybe. If it's a hawk, my totem bird, I guess that would be a lucky. H-A-W-K, my totem bird, hawk, and so I got it on the drill, a little bit of honking there, my cousins, and of course that's why we gotta get drilling with that. We gotta get doing on the love side of things to get it drilling, and sometimes we gotta get out of the way, because it's something which here we share together, this great collective with all my brothers and sisters who come to join us here from across the world, and in the coming Democratic Imperial Republic, which we're gonna create, and which we're gonna, of course, finance, fuse together via my DRT, debt refusion theory, the CIT, citizen integration theory, and the DFT, democratic fusion theory, in the coming days. And I wanted to go get some wafers, but I think I have 4 little pieces of wafers left over, so we're not gonna go get, unless we're gonna go get or not gonna go get. You know what, I still have a little bit of sweets at home, so I guess it's a no spend day today. No spend day Monday. No spend no money spent today, and that's what we got. That's what we're gonna get drilling with that, and that's what we gotta get on that left right Z, No spend Monday. I didn't spend money yesterday, and I'm tight budget, so tomorrow's gonna be my money for the movies, which is $5, so I guess we're not gonna spend any money today. I got some cucumbers, so I guess I could put dip them in a little bit of sweet. See, that's an N.A.C.W.P thing. Now I'm focused on those numbers. See, 44 and 11. 44, 11, 44, 11, 44, 11. So Asperger's, now that I'm on the topic, and I got 10 seconds to cross, and we're gonna cross the street. Asperger's, it's a condition that I live with. It's a neurological mental divergent condition. It's called Asperger's. There's not a lot of Aspies in the world, and this neurological mental divergent condition makes us a bit awkward, odd, weird, strange in certain circumstances of the societal nature, and how we view the world and how we interact with the world on a daily basis, on a regular basis. And of course we might focus on those specific numbers there, 44, then there's a line, and then 0, 11, certain details that other people might not even, of course, notice, of course, on. Gotta get out of the way, saluting our first responders. Slow down when you hear the ambulance, when you hear the security forces, just slow down, slow down a little bit, slow down a little bit, and just make sure we got children, and we got youth, and they might be at risk and tough times, economic and mental health wise, and crises myself. I've been there. And Aspi's problem is we're less than 1%, less than half a percentile. Aspi population is 0.44%. So there's not a lot of Aspis like myself in the world. The major problems we have as a community, tiny small fraction of a community, is that in our community there's a very high depression and suicidal rate. So we got three main problems: depression and suicidal rates, which are exorbitant compared to you, the very majority, the 99.56%. It's 9 times higher. And I was depressed, I was suicidal, and what got me out of being depressed and suicidal was crossing Canada coast to coast in August 2017. I crossed Canada in August 2017. I crossed Canada. I went with a friend, an anonymous friend. Thank you for gifting me those 2 books and renting a book several times for me called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, which made me learn a lot about myself and opened my eyes as to how my difference can be sometimes open to vulnerabilities and exploitation and certain things that we do not fully understand and concord to certain specific social situations and conditions, and how our mind is different because of these mutations. Now that, of course, they're not visible outwardly, exteriorly. They're not protrudent outside of the cranial sphere or the cerebellum in a visible manner. They're at the microscopic level, like, let's think about it, like 4 tiny microchips, or at the nano micro scale, right? So thank you again for those books. I highly valued them, and I highly learned, and still, building bridges every day with the neurodivergent community, because that's what we got to do, because there's no antagonistic relationship. I don't have antagonistic feelings or resentments towards the 99.56%. We just have to build those bridges in concordiate. But the problem is, as I faced it, depression and suicidal rates 9 times higher in the Aspi community, 9 times higher. The other problem is lack of friends. I don't have myself many friends. I have a few online, and from now on, just so that we understand each other where we are, just, if you will, to be a friend, it's friends with benefits only. So today is July 14th, and it's friends with benefits only, friends with benefits only, friends with benefits only, or pledge your allegiance. Benefits can be intellectual discussions, because I'm a philosopher and pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist. I am androgynous. I'm part of the LGBTQ community. LGBTQ. I'm pansexual, so not a problem. Rock and roll and friends with benefits. You want to make good loving. You're black, you're white, you're a man, you're a woman, you're a white, black, white, rainbow. But you got to be of age. You got to be of age. You're adults. So I'm gonna card you, just like when you go buy some of that's legal here in Canada in 2019. All cannabis was legalized, so we got that good legal here. And just like buying good booze, good legal, good cigarettes, that's of course something that I'm gonna apply as a principle for. As I go now here, pass by the wilderness. So yours truly, that is the same principles where we're gonna apply together. So that's it, that's all. Or pledge your allegiance, support my dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership across the North American Collectif in order to create a democratic imperial republic by fusing Canada and United States, the 10 provinces, the 50 states, and the 3 territories into 63 super states of this new empire, which is going to be based on a public-private partnership and concord a new constitution from the old constitution of the United States, 1776, and the one in the 1980s in Canada. And my brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians, the king is absent. The king is absent. The king is absent. It's time for the republic. It's time for the union in concordiate, for the public-private partnership, in order to, of course, fuse Canada and United States in this complex territorial complex of which we're going to be integrating it together for the greater good and for our salvaging civilizational complex. And we're gonna, of course, play that defense, security, service, and defense, which has got to be translated into practical action. My theories, that is, and philosophies, which are known as the Trinity, CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, DRT, Death Row Fusion Theory, and the DFT, Democratic Fusion Theory. That's my Trinity theories. And of course, as a pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist, my centrism is tied hand in hand with the North American Collective, or what I call the North American Civilizational Complex, of which we constitute not a divorce from Western civilization, but we are distinct from Western civilization, and that is something which, of course, we have to be compromised, make this great compromise as we are together here, and that's how we gotta be on the love side of things. And see that if the dogs approach, I gotta be careful, because if they're not poodles, I cannot pet them too much, you know. If they're not poodles, I cannot pet them too much. If they're poodles, I can pet, otherwise I start sneezing, you know. Otherwise I start sneezing. So that's just what we have to be doing with that. That's just what we have to be doing with that. That's just what we have to do here in the wilderness. As we go, of course, from the left to right. And, you know, if there's more dangerous dogs, like dog breeds that are, you know, more aggressive. I don't know much about dogs. I know geopolitics, sports, fitness, dancing is my favorite sport of rock and roll. But I just heard some on the news, on the stories, that, of course, there is some danger. Some muzzle best if they're like pit bulls. And this is elderberry. That you can make juice. I just made great juice. That's elderberry there. That one. See? This is elderberry. You can make juice with that. You can put it in water and you can make juice, but you gotta soak it for like 3 days. I make great juice. It came out really good, actually. It came out really good, actually. It came out really good, you know. So that's what we got. So that's how we gotta get drilling on that, you know. Came out really good. So you have this beautiful wilderness here, of which we are totally aware of, and that's what we got to be doing on that, and that's what we're doing on the left and on the right, you know. So we gotta get it on left, you know. So we're gonna get it on the left, and here we are in the sun. And that's what we gotta get doing, you know. So it's something which we gotta be always mindful about, and see as the Pope, the King, the Son, and that's all we got on the Pope. I'm watching to see if, of course, there's smell in the air, and that's what we got. And here we got, see, yeah, that's beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? That's when I reach here, and those wildernesses there, that's what it is. That's what it is with that, and that's what we got, you know. Beautiful nature. I love being here. It just brings a big joy and a smile here. I love civilization as well, but this is cooling down here, a little bit of a refreshness. And this, in the past month, everything just flourished by water and by heat, by this power of the sun and the black fertile earth. And you see how if you see my videos when I passed here last month in June, today is July, of course, July 14th, you know, whatever the case may be. And that's what it is, and that's what we got, you know. So here we are, man. For where we are, it's something which we gotta be on that complex, you know, to love it on the go here, you know. Something which we gotta transmute, you know, and we gotta appreciate its nature. So back to Asperger's, just to finalize before I go into other areas. So it's not a mental illness, you know. It's a neurological mental divergent condition. The problem are, like I said, lack of friends and high depression and suicidal rates. Friends with benefits only, pledge your allegiance, legion. The third problem is, which is unacceptable, and which myself I suffered from, and I still suffer from now today. The 80%, listen to this. Hey, look at that beautiful circle. Hey, you got beauties are the bees. You got big four of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 big ones. Big ones. Bumblebees. So the problem is 80% of Aspies are unemployed. So the unemployment rates are so high, right? Unemployment rates 80%. Think about that. Just compute that in your mind a bit. 80, right? 80. And here, you know, you have some berries. Let's see if they're still ripening. But see, this one's black. Can eat. Oh, they're getting ready. And yeah, they're getting ready. Those are big. Look at those. These are wild berries here. That's what it is, and that's what we got. See, got some. Yeah, so they're getting ripe. A third of them are ripe, I guess. So got the beauty of ripeness. So that's the problem, is very high unemployment rates. The unemployment rates, hey, there's more here. Let's see. These are not so ripe, but some. Those are going bad. They're going bad. Better here. Wild berries. No bears. Yeah. Beautiful flora fauna here. Beautiful pink flowers. So I like to come here. I like to go in nature, civilization, and two gotta work together in concordiate. So the unacceptable depression rates stand at 80%. See more berries here. Okay, got some berries, got some berries, got some berries. They're getting ready. So the main three problems that aspies face is, of course, friends. I don't need much friends, you know. Friends with benefits only. Here's the fourth one. Fourth one. That's it. I don't have any friends, but pledge your allegiance. They're our family. And there's a nice bush of berries here. Wild berries. And of course, high depression suicidal rate. Very high, 9 times more than the neurotypicals. Than the neurotypicals. 9 times higher. The lack of employment, high unemployment, not 80%. %. 80%. Look at those beauties. That's 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5, that's a lot. You know? That's a lot. It's unacceptable. Really unacceptable. That's a nice cluster, one of the best. Really unacceptable. To be 80% unemployment rate. For me, it's friends with benefits only, and I'm always open for business. Always open for business. 24/7. Business, pleasure, intellect, dancing, rock and roll in the berry in the field. You know how I feel. I get that. Rock and roll, I mean, that's let you go on the rock and roll, you know. For the left and for the right. You know that we right from the side. So you know just what we do. For the left. For the left and for the right. You know that we have a right, but we have a right up in the side too. We have a right up in the side, you have a right up in the side, I don't rock and roll up in the side, so. That's another side. Okay, that's it. Thank you. 4 more, 4 best. Okay. Oh, there's in the back. All the way in the back. Okay, that's enough. Enough, I guess I ate a little bit, and that's why we're gonna go rock and roll in. For the butchers, for the bakers, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the firefighters, for those involved in the production, distribution of food. That's how we're gonna rock and roll it, you know how we go. For the truckers on the road, for the bakers, for the butchers, for the train conductors, for the electricians, for the plumbers. Some more berries on this side. No, we're not gonna do that game. On each side there's berries, you know. Aspies on the world unite. So Asperger's again, just to finalize, it's not a mental illness, it is a neurological mental divergent condition. Makes one predisposed to special interests, and those special interests are also known as obsessive, although I do not use the terminology obsessive because it renders no justice for me to use the word obsessive, because that's for a neurotypical who has obsessions. But we Aspies, when we're involved in those special interests, also known as obsessive interest, I'm going to utilize the terminology of special interest. We can be super intense, super concentrated, super focused, super in it and dedicated when we are engaged, when we work, when we study, when we do those things which are our special interest. And my holy trinity is 24/7 geopolitics, 24/7 geopolitics, sports, fitness, dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll. So I love to write rock and roll, create rock and roll on the spot with lyrics, and I'm also an artist, and that's how we rock and roll, with sports and fitness and dancing. And I've been on a fitness journey ever since I crossed Canada coast to coast, because I've been depressed and suicidal. I've had many jobs, but somewhere 2 weeks, 2 days, 3 months, 4 months, and that was short-lived employment, and that happens to a lot of Aspies, because this is of course a problem. These are red berries, the other ones were black. These are red. See, these are red. We got type of berries here, see? They gotta be picked because they're going to waste. So I might come Wednesday to do a berry picking. These are red. To do just a berry picking time, and that's how we're gonna get doing. Maybe do a workout picking berries in the wilderness here, because they gotta be, I think they got a week left, those ones. And that's what it is with Asperger's again, this special condition. And we might have characteristics again. Don't use symptoms. Symptoms is for an illness. Symptoms is for a malady. Symptoms is not for Asperger's. Aspies, we don't have symptoms, we have characteristics. Please, please, please. Aspies, we have characteristic traits which are odd, can be odd, peculiar, strange. And see, we got more berries here. Red berries. No, they're really ripe. Wow, look at that. If I don't come, it's gonna go with waste. So good. These are red. Oh yeah, they're going to waste, eh? Might as well eat some. In 2 weeks they'll be gone. That's how we go, man. That's what we do. For that beauty here. Wow. Good. It's a nice cluster there. Moving forward, some more here. A lot of on the way. I'm gonna go in the west. So that's Asperger's, neurodivergence, and We have certain characteristics, again, not symptoms, because it's not an illness. It's not something which can be medicated. It's something which has to be understood properly, and it's always working on the characteristics. And I gotta always build bridges with the fellow neurotypical community. But the bridges are easier built for me. And those special characteristics, the special interest. So if you like rock and roll, then we could roll. If you're into geopolitics, I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who has, again, I gotta say, because it's part of my work, as an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and strategist, I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. So I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019. I have proof of work, because most of my work on a daily basis revolves around geopolitical theorizing and geopolitical strategies for the North American complex, Canada, United States, binational, NORAD based, binational, Canada, United States most, but also extending to NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, as a secondary level. But first and foremost, for the North American Collective, binational security, prosperity, and strategies, and for Canada and United States jointly. And of course, this statement that I'm going to make, you have to say yes to, because it is a geopolitical truth. So those are my special interests, and always got to build bridges with the fellow neurotypicals, you, the vast majority, the 99%, 99.56%, and us Aspies were less than 1%. It's not a lot. Some people don't even know what Asperger's is. Again, not a mental illness, neurodivergent mental psychic condition, which makes us, of course, predisposed to special interests, and of course those special interests preoccupy our daily routines and habits, to the point, of course, of simmering what seems, of course, to be as an obsession. But of course, it's not in the neurotypical sense that it's an obsession per se, but it's, of course, ours, from our energies and mental faculties, something which we develop on a daily congruent basis. And when I spend 5-6 hours a day doing geopolitical theoretical analysis, I don't even realize that I spend super focused, super intense 5 hours of my time drinking 2 coffees and analyzing different news sources, seeing the different news sources of what they're doing, what they're saying, the foreign affairs ministers of different countries, foreign affairs of Russia, foreign affairs ministry of Japan, of China, of India, of different countries, especially the NATO BRICS, North American BRICS, of course, in relation to those organizations. Of course, the expansion of BRICS is a point of many interest, and of course, if anybody wills to commission specific geopolitical themed work on a specific subject, to keep in mind that I specialize in the 20th century, mostly Cold War period era geopolitics, and of course concordiate to the 21st century. Concordiate to the 21st century. That's where we are. Concordiate. Concordiate to the 21st century. That's what it is, and that's what we got, and that's what we are here. Look at those beautiful white. These are not edible, by the way. These are not edible. You can admire, but don't eat those. They're not edibles. And so you got another field of beauty here. Wow. Isn't that a beautiful field? Look, it looks bluish and purple. See, it goes all the way in the back, so that's what's cool, and cool to check a little bit of that. And all the elderberries, most of the elderberries gone. Most of the elderberries gone. Yes, I did 4 bottles, which is good, and I guess next year, June, July, I'll be on the island. Gonna be transferring the new headquarters for the Imperial headquarters, and we got a mass militarized for SSD, security, service, and defense, which I'm going to go into a bit. But again, when I am immersed, for example, in hours of working out, training, exercising, and even now when I march, is my part of my exercise. I do a lot of dance with my hands, my feet, my toes, do that choreography, you know, on the toes. Do a little bit of that choreography on the toes, with my mouth, with my, a little bit of that booty. I don't twerk that good, but an hour twerking minimum $1 million. Can twerk for world peace and give half to my anonymous friend the money and build the Forgotten Goddess Temple. Forgotten Goddess Temple. Now that I'm discussing the Forgotten Goddess Temple, if you don't know, if you know, will know that I will for us to build 4 new buildings in North America, of which one to be the Forgotten Goddess Temple. The Forgotten Goddess Temple. The Forgotten Goddess Temple, of which one to be the Forgotten Goddess Temple. Look at that. The Forgotten Goddess Temple. I said Goddess, G-O-D-D-S-S. I get credited those trillions of kisses. You know, Rainbow Dragon. Dragon is priestess. I said priestess. On a hoe. H-N-A-H. Dragon died during COVID, being reborn, although still officially to change my name. Got to get those dollars. Got to get those dollars and have to get those dollars with it. And that's how we have to get congruently, and that's how we have to get manifesting on that, and that's how we gotta get that rock and rolling, you know, to get it on the left and on the right and in the middle and on the side, you know. Sometimes we gotta get that yellow, you know. Sometimes we gotta get that yellow. That yellow with it, beautiful yellow flowers, I mean, and that's how we have to be congruent on the go as we manifest here on this beautiful plane. And see how my brain now switches, due of course to the fact that my special interest is geopolitics. As I approach the highways, as the highway here is parallel, and you know, you got those railways, now my brain switches to doing integral geopolitical theorizing and analysis, and of course knowing for a fact that that truck of course, which is carrying of course some goods, that truck which is carrying some goods might be essentials. I know it's going east and the other ones are going west, so I don't know much about what it's carrying internally. Maybe some bacon, some cheese, some milk, some of that sausage, some of that bread. I do know that it is super important for our civilizational complex, because of course all the elements by nutrition come mostly by the trucks, the delivery, the trucking industry, that is, you know, the distributions, the points of production, that is the factories and the farms, the point of production and trade, and then the transformation from there goes on the trucks, and it goes across the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states and 3 territories, east, west, north, south, as that truck maybe has 156 kilos of bread. Pounds, not kilos, maybe, because kilos, well, you never know. I don't know. I'm just saying numbers like that. So of course I don't know, but there is numbers and information that are available. For example, that truck and that truck might both be carrying, one might be carrying bacon, one might be carrying cheese buns or buns, you know. So these are all, we're open for sabotage and espionage and our supply chains, you know, and especially you see the railway right here. So it's going east-west, as those are going east-west with the trucks and the highways, and of course it's integral to everything that we have as a civilizational complex, and all their arbeit, work, that is. Thank you, truckers, and that truckers and all the truckers across the 63 is integral, of course, with the work for what they're doing now. Of course, the distribution of food, with a bacon, with a cheese, with a salami, with a milk, with a bread, with a chocolates, etc. That is something which we of course have to appreciate. You know, as I'm a philosopher, an artist, an athlete, geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and I see from the micro perspective, meaning this point in time, this event right here on this Monday, 14th of July, that of course integrally as I cross, of course. Is it the 15th already? 14th, 15th? I gotta know, you know. I don't know exactly, but maybe, you know. Maybe. Look at that. Something which we have to get it on the go, you know. I don't know about that, but you gotta check these points in time there, you know, to get it on the left and on the right, and that's what we got. And so we gotta go on the left and on the right, you know. So here we are with the youth there playing. Just be careful, because, you know, just be careful so you don't slip, you know. Have fun, and also secure fun, you know, because it's, I guess with this is no danger because of here, but they go further, there's spikes if they pick berries, you know, to be careful so they don't get like branches like this, you know. So that's it. And it's always a balance. Children are innocent, and I love to see them play around and have fun, but I'm always meditating on their security as well, you know, because here's high up, and have fun, but be safe and have fun. They have to go together, you know. Safety and fun, because I know the place, and I know that you have weeds that are prickly, so if you go and whatever the case. And here we got the bunny, and just don't pollute, because we got the bunny here, you know. So that's what we got, a little bunny, see there, to get it on the little bunny side, you know. And it'll say hello and then went in, and that's how we got, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get on that transit. And sometimes we just gotta get in and get out and have fun, and then, you know, that's just how we gotta live on a day-to-day basis, incremental between civilization and nature, and the bridges which I gotta build between myself as a neurodivergent citizen, part of this tiny minority of less than 1%, less than 0.5%, less than 0.44% only, compared to the LGBTQ community, which are 5-6%, 6% maybe, Gen Z, millennials, 6 to 7%, statistics wise. And that's just something which I have to build, you know, and which you gotta build together, which we gotta build together as we go. And that's what we got, and we gotta get building on the go with that, and we gotta get doing on the left and on the right. And here we gotta get on the side of the things which we have, and we gotta get it on the left, you know, sometimes, which we gotta get it for those to get a little bit of that sunshine, and do it a little bit of that cleaning and exercising. And, you know, I did my laundry, and that's something which is super important. And here, make sure that you put the recycling in the recycling and the garbage in the garbage, you know. That's something which we have to be doing with that, and that's something which we gotta be doing on the go, you know. So that's freedom requires, you know, a lot of responsibility as security, as individual citizens, as we are sovereigns, citizens, myself as an individual sovereign citizen. That's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get drilling with that, and that's all we got. And you know, this whole civilization is a privilege. That was my thesis. Back in 2023. It was called The Privilege of Civilization. And this is my fellow citizen who always gets on the go, always gets a little bit of that loving, and it's always good to see him smile, nod. And we've been encountering each other for years. He's biking individually, sovereignty, and his safety, my safety, his liberty, my liberty are sacrosanct, you know. We might differ in some opinions. He might be more on, I don't know, because we never spoke, we just nodded at each other, but he might be more on the left, more on the right, more in the center, but ultimately something which we gotta be mindful about as we go, you know. So that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get drilling, you know. And here, see, we got 4 seconds. So it's my responsibility, because I'm in the public, to not delay my crossing. See, because that's the privilege and the responsibilities and the duties and obligations. The duties and the obligations, of course, which are fundamentally integral to our whole civilizational complex. And I love me some red. That's specific to me. I like red. Red is my favorite color. And I have Asperger's, so I focus on the numbers in the back, which are, I see dumb blurred. I cannot afford to get, of course, glasses, because I was prescribed some, but it's in the back. It's written, I think, 44 and .031. 44.031, 44 and .031, right? So those are things which are peculiar to me as an individual ASPE. We ASPEs, we focus on certain dimensions of whatever the case may be. We focus on details which some people would not focus on, certain details which might seem odd, weird, and bizarre, you know, and strange. And they don't really kind of serve a purpose, although sometimes they do. It's classification and numerology and what, and of course detail to where the product was made, for example. That's why when you see somebody, or for example here, see this pole here, I'm gonna check those numbers, which of course they're classifications, and it says, I believe, 2019, and then you have the end, the numbers, several numbers, and of course those are classifications, and there's no made in where it is made in, but just concerned with certain details that some majority of the population would say, W, what the fuck is up with that, you know? But that's just Asperger's outward characteristics, which are integral in myself as an individual sovereign citizen of Quebec, Canada, and the king is absent. It's time for the Republic and of the coming democratic imperial republic. Pledge your allegiance, thou our family, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get on that drill, you know, because it's here we got integral. And you see that, like I said, here in the public we got responsibilities, duties, and obligations under the concordiate of the individual sovereign citizen and the collective privilege of this civilization, because civilization is a privilege. That was my thesis back in 20, and that's part of one of the philosophies, the models of the Dragonomy. Civilization is a privilege, eh? Just having running water. Thank you, public workers. Just having electricity. Thank you, workers of the past 20th century who built all the 60 dams. Now we got 63 with the new complex open in La Romaine before COVID 2019. I believe it was open, and all the Bay James project of the hydroelectric Quebec dam, which of course was made in the past and serves us today as we have incongruently to have it today, as we're going to move towards tomorrow and build more, of course, something which we got to be integral about. And that's the privilege of civilization, and all the workers who work on the go, and all the workers who go on the left and on the side, and that's what it is with that, and that's how we're gonna get doing with the XYZ, and that's how we're gonna get on that left and on that right and in the middle, and that's just how we got, and that's just how we do it, you know, on the left and on the right, and we gotta get it for those bakers, the butchers, the cooks, which we need, you know, which we need as a collective civilization, those who pick up the garbage. Today, I missed by a few minutes. Usually I put it out between 5, after 5 or earlier, because I left late. Usually even early in the morning, if I leave early in the morning. But today they passed 4 minutes after 5. So I don't want to rush, but I checked. It's not so bad, so it can withstand another week. And that's just how it is. I missed it, and they passed on the early side. And that's just what happened. But some of my neighbors are left. They left until September, so it's less accumulation of garbage. So that also got to be considered, because I don't want it to be full, but that's what accumulation for that. So those are just things which we have as a privilege, you know. Just the garbage collectors, those who picked up the recycling this morning. Thank you. Those who are gonna pick up the compost every Thursday, and that's just how we do and how we are about it, and that's just how we integrally roll with it. And it's something which, of course, I gotta be manifesting integrally and in the auspices of everything that I do as a citizen, individual citizen, is something which of course I have to be congruent about, and congruent about for the left and right, and for the majority of the population, as we are of course here, the truckers. And yeah, I was myself a bit moody, you know. This last week I was moody, this week I was moody. I think I'm really wanted a massage therapy session, and you know those thoughts, feel sorry for yourself, but you know what, I gotta take a bath. So if it's not tonight when I go back, it's gonna be tomorrow. If not tomorrow, Wednesday. That's the deadline. I think I need a good bath, because I wish I could afford a massage therapy session, you know. It costs, and I'm not gonna be able to afford it for now, but any volunteers, I don't want to waste anybody's time, you know. I just don't want to waste anybody's time, and I hope people don't want to waste my time either. You know, life is short. I could die tonight. Nuclear war could start tonight. Rockets, ICBMs. Somebody pushes the red button, you know. China might invade Taiwan. Because I predicted what's happening now, eh? Now I'm just going to go into geopolitics. Well, keep in mind that yes, I do have Asperger's, but I'm going to stick with what I'm good at, which is geopolitics, because that's what I'm good at. Other things, social things, I might say things which might offend, because we Aspies, we sometimes say things direct, you know, or might offend. For example, I'll give you a concrete example before I forget. If you see somebody in the store really inspecting an object really close to the face for a few seconds, could be 44 seconds, could be a minute, really close to the face, like to the nose, that might be a characteristic, that might be an Aspie, characteristic of Asperger's. If you ask somebody like myself, somebody even in my videos, you see they ask me how I am, and say, I'm okay, I'm good, but I'm financially stressed. So these things I gotta work on consciously, because it requires an effort, you know, because that's how Aspies we are, and that's how we rock and roll with it, and that's how we keep on the dimension. And sometimes I guess we tend to break people's illusions, you know. I think we tend to break people's illusions, you know. I think we tend to break people's illusions. I think we tend to break people's illusions. As some people have broken mine, I guess, in certain things, you know. Although I have that retrograde amnesia and live with plenty of scars. I have memory loss. I have trouble remembering my life prior to like spring 2014. I gotta retrieve the archives or records from the Jewish General Hospital, because I was attacked by surprise a few years ago. Hit my head on the ground on the concrete, and had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder, and the doctors cracked it back. Cracked, like placed it back, crack, but manually, like with the technique, the medical technique, with a dislocated shoulder. And I was put on some meds, and I was in a coma. So I don't know if I was a junkie, or if I did a lot of like alcoholic consumption, or by that trauma, by those scars I have on my body, that I just don't remember my life prior. I have problems remembering my life prior to that event. I remember moving. I thought it was 2016 July, so it's not. I thought it was going to be 9 years this July 1st, but it's actually been 10 years, 2015. And for a few years I was depressed and suicidal, and crossing Canada coast to coast made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. Made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, you know. Made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. Made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, you know. So that's sometimes we gotta appreciate the daily life. And I survived COVID even between mid-February 2020 and March 2020. More than 5 years ago, it was like death, pestilence, and disease. I really thought that I was gonna die. I really thought that was it. COVID, it was like death, pestilence, and disease for me. I really thought those were my last days. It was like death, pestilence, and disease on me. It was like death, pestilence, and disease on my enemies. Please rock and roll when I hear bees for the geese, for the goddess and the please, for the truck up in the knees, for the left and for the sight, for the blessed and for the light, for those. Look at that, look at that. That's where we were Friday, on top of there. See top. Once you see the mountain, see part of the mountain there. That's where we were. You can see the mountain, my second home, afar off, and that's how you can see it, afar off. The mountain, my second home, and there you can see part of the downtown core area. Montreal N.A.C.W.P, we gotta get it on the go, and that's where we were. You see the big mountain, the three big mountain system, Mount Royal, and you can see it afar off, and that's miles and kilometers away, so you can see it hundreds of miles and kilometers away, even out from outside the island. Mount Royal proper. That's where we were Saturday in my video. You can check it out, past videos, and that's where we go often. But I said Monday we're gonna start by going by the river because it's hot. So I said tomorrow we're gonna go by the mountain from my old neighborhood where I'm gonna go watch a movie with my anonymous friends. So blasted in, blasted out, and got a little bit on that left and on right for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, plumbers, and bakers, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's how we rock and roll, you know. That's how we drill it on the go, and that's how we do on the left and right, and the butchers and the bakers and all those involved, you know. That production of food, the truckers, always got to be grateful, you know. Civilization is a privilege. It's all this, the electricity, the highways, the food supplies, food sources, all this, you know. It's been built in the past decades, so sometimes we got to salute the workers of the 20th century, you know, as they drilled it on for us, and we got to take the baton now for the North American fusion of Canada and the United States. Geopolitics now. Being an independent geopolitical director interest, and I have a special interest, and I can be involved for hours and hours and hours and hours a day, 24/7 basically. Geopolitical theorizing and analysis and strategy, of course. Binational strategy, support my bipolar, not to be confused with bipolar as in the psychiatric condition, but my bipolar strategy for the North American complex for total BDD, benevolent dominance dominion of the 21st century by fusing Canada and the United States into the 21st century democratic Imperial Republic via my DRT, debt profusion theory, beautiful yellow, debt profusion theory, CIT, citizen integration theory, and the DFT, democratic fusion theory, to be of course implemented ASAP, because we're in emergency and prices keep going up, rents have gone up, mine as well. I can't complain because it wasn't more than $10, maybe it was exactly 10, I'm not gonna divulge, but I can't complain really, because it was within what's acceptable percentage wise, and within of course what's acceptable percentage wise to be doing, and within whatever the case may be to be doing on that and to be doing on the rock and roll. And that's all we got to be mindful about as we are stepping on these toes for Texas, for the 63, for the truckers, nice red truck, for the butchers, the bakers, the plumbers, and the electricians, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's how we got to go on the left and on the right and in the middle and on the top. And we got to get, now to get conclusive in this tough economic and geopolitical times, I got to make the statement, because I always do in the videos. I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019, I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019, I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019. You heard that correct, you heard that right. I predicted what is happening now in October, November 2019. Not exactly in detail by detail was my prediction, consequentially, in the manner of predicting word for word or exactly what was going to happen, but in a general manner, overall manner, I predicted that humanity is headed again towards an international conflagration. And so even I made, created, and produced a workout training program system designed to go hand in hand with such a scenario. And of course, I have proof of work because I have the video where I document and I discuss it. And of course, I have myself performed, and you can see hundreds of those videos online. More than 372. So that's close to 400 of my own, more than 372. Almost 400 of my own creative workout training program system. And I said when I reached 300 that my A became an O. And you know, since 2017 when I got out of my depression by traversing Canada coast to coast, that event in my life when I crossed Canada coast to coast and crossed the prairies and I reached Banff and I went to the Atlantic and I saw both the Atlantic and the Pacific. That made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Quebecers, Canadians, and my fellow brothers and sisters in the 50 states, the United States. And of course, that event changed my whole life. And ever since then, of course, I've been on that fitness journey. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. Between 80 and 93 pounds. Between 80 and 93 pounds. So consequently, that was, of course, one of my major events which changed my life. So I guess I'm on the fourth change now this summer. The fourth one. I wish I could afford to get my anonymous friend a house and to move. I moved about 2015 July. I used to live in a moldy underground place. Like I said, I got to retrieve my archives when I was attacked by surprise, and I got that retrograde amnesia trauma. But I used to live before 2015 July in a small underground prison cell. Like, it wasn't really a prison cell, it was a basement, but tiny small basement. It was like a prison cell with lots of mold, and I survived there. I moved, I survived, and here I am, you know, joyous, happy, content. But I was a bit moody earlier. I'm not gonna stress that. I was a bit moody. I was like, yeah, I know what you're craving. You want to get a massage therapy session. You want somebody to massage you, and you ain't got nobody to massage you, blah blah blah. You want friends with benefits, I know, blah blah blah. Illusions that people have, and I have, and you have, and they all dissipate with a little bit of that aspy straightforwardness and aspy directness. Friends with benefits only. Otherwise, I don't need. I paid my rent, paid my electricity bill. I don't know. It's July. Paid my rent, paid my electricity bill. Got food in the fridge, and last August is knocking on the door, so I can say what's what for July. I don't like violence, and I am hyper vigilant, and I played that defense like I'm defending a quarterback in the Super Bowl. Like I'm defending a quarterback in one of my favorite top Super Bowls, Super Bowl 47. Super Bowl 47, aka the Hardball Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, one of my top 5 Super Bowls. When Padlock's team, my 49ers lost. When my 49ers lost, of course. That's what it is, and that's how we got, and that's how we gotta go on the left, right, Z, and that's how we gotta get doing on that, and gotta get doing on the go to for the left and for the right, and for those, of course, who are circumstantial about it, and pretty much on the more direct and straightforward sometimes because of the aspiness, you know. We tend to have this direct, straightforward, laconic type of way. Laconic, but we don't mean to offend. Just let me know, and you know, I can retract and retrieve and say, you know, and just I'm sorry. And but the thing with aspies is that we like to make amends by offering something, you know. By offering something, you know, by offering whatever we can offer, by whatever we can offer, you know, whatever we can offer. That is just something which we have to offer with that, and if we can offer with that, it's gonna get it on the left, right, Z, and we're gonna offer if we can offer. If we're in a position, I mean, don't ask for money right now, financial, but that's just how aspies we show compassion and empathy. We aspies show compassion and empathy by offering things if we can, you know, if we can bring some joy, salvage somehow relief, you know, in a more practical, beneficent way, rather than verbal consolation. That's just a thing which is, of course, aspy. that's just a thing which was of course on the N.A.C.W.P thing of things, and that's what we got on the N.A.C.W.P things, you know. So that's just how we gotta get drilling with that, and we're gonna get drilling on the go, you know, for the left and right and in the go, and that's just sometimes which we gotta be doing, and we gotta accord on the things which we have, that we are like that. We offer things rather than, or to do, explicitly to do, rather than the verbal consolation, I'm sorry, or this or that, you know. Sometimes I express my aspiness when somebody, for example, the other day I was on the mountain and somebody said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, I'm sorry. I said, why are you sorry? In response to my saying that I said that I'm financially stressed. I'm financially stressed. I'm good, but I'm financially stressed. And the person apologized, and just, I said, I got a bit intense, and I said, why are you apologizing? It's not your fault, you know. You didn't close my jobs, you didn't offer me employment. If you offer me employment, take it back, whatever the case may be, then yeah, but it's not your fault that I'm financially stressed, I said to the fellow citizen. So these things is hard for us Aspies, you know, to totally integrate. The social communications, basically, I guess it requires a bit of a theater, you know, pretense, and we're all pretending, you know, socially together type, wearing masks type of thing, you know. And I guess Aspies, our brains are different, so we have these mutations, and then it's how we see things are different. We see the world differently, and these social things come difficult for us to compute, to just work with, you know, in the social. So we always got to build bridges, and again, we don't have antagonistic feelings. I don't have antagonistic, resentful feelings towards the 99.56%, you know. I just am working in my own way independently as an artist, and financially stressed, been to hell and back, with scars, with trauma, with been depressed, been suicidal. But now you look at this beautiful yellow, feel the flowers, and you know that yellow flowers brings me joy. And that's just how we live on a daily basis. And you know, the problem is we got to build bridges, and it's building bridges that sometimes they're small bridges, medium-sized bridges, big bridges, or huge, mega, super big bridges which gotta be built. But those are 4 just categories. I could be more elaborating. Those 4 categories can have 4 subcategories of the small, the medium, the big, and the super large, super big. So to those 4 categories, there could be 4 other categories, but you know I love this yellow. Feel the yellow flowers as I go. You know I gotta rock and roll. I'm on the toes, military grade boots. I ain't got no money for the studio, but the sun's shining. Plumbers got some work. Butchers and the doctors, somebody switching, making some hamburgers. Some of those cheeseburgers. I don't wanna waste nobody's time. Friends with benefits only, please don't waste my time. I ain't got no money for the guitar, no for the studio. I just sing that rock and roll like a previous cars on the go. Got the sky high, that's the lights, satellites up in the lights. You know I love yellow, let me ride. Oh yeah, I can go in rock and roll trances and just channel rock and roll, because that's my special interest. But now we're gonna focus on geopolitics again. There's geopolitics. I predicted what's happening now in 2019. Again, I got proof of work. I got the videos online. I got several documented videos relating to my geopolitical analysis and all my geopolitical work and theorizing, which of course I've done in the past years and years and years and years. And like I said, I have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014 spring, but I graduated high school. I have even documents. Supposedly I wanted to go to Kingston Military College, and that implies, you know, a long interest that I was always interested in geopolitics, because warfare and military and defense strategy are the main top priorities of geopolitics. You know, it's even now we see that 2 big taboos have been broken, and even today there was in the news, of course, that France is gonna mass invest in their military. But keep in mind that my geopolitical strategy, the bipolar geopolitical strategy for the Democratic Imperial Republic, total BDD, total benevolent dominance and dominion. The BDD is, of course, not bipolar as in the psychological, psychiatric sense, but bipolar as it relates merely to being a strategy, a binational strategy. But it's called bipolar because we have the unipolar, the multipolar, and we're going to have together what nobody has expressed as a strategy. We're going to have the bipolar, which is going to, together, we're going to fuse and we're going to checkmate together both the unipolar, post-world of the fall of the post-Soviet Union, and we're going to checkmate the multipolar world that's want to be created and done concordially by Russia and China with their BRICS alliance. Russia and China with their BRICS alliance. But again, not antagonistic, right? It's going to be internal. And then if NATO, whatever collaboration we have integrally with NATO, is going to be transatlantic. Bipolar and plus the NATO, because we're part of NATO. But it's basically NORAD-centric and based on my theories, which have to be both Canada and United States. See, that's the mountain far off. You can see that's miles and miles. We're miles and kilometers away, many miles and kilometers away from the mountain. See there? You can see it. That's where we were Friday, and many days we go there. So the mountain can be seen afar off from here. Can be seen afar off from way here. See? One of the peaks of Mount Royal. Mount Royal, you can see it from here. Top the mountain, Mount Royal. Headquarters of the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, the coming Democratic Imperial Republic. And we need to, of course, mass finance a complementary counterpoise to the Pentagon. So we're gonna have centers, the bipolar centers of security, service, and defense, and strong security, service, and defense by the creation of the Dragon Army, the mass investment in the military and remilitarization together. So we're gonna build a mass center on the island here, and also build the 44 tunnels. So I'm gonna get into. So I predicted what's happening now. So now I want to discuss some geopolitical events of this past days. So this past days, of course, the major geopolitical events which had transpired are, of course, the meetings which occurred with BRICS. So the most important one and the most important point is, of course, that the BRICS nations are pushing for adopting and creating their own common currency. Their own common currency, you know, that's what we got. Their own common currency. And of course, their own common currency is not yet available, but they're, of course, pushing for de-dollarization. And they have been successful in the past years to move out a bit of the complex of the dollar. So their move, of course, to move out of the complex of the dollar is something which we have to be transpositions about, as we're going to create the universal exchange unit together by creating the DRT, the debt refusion theory. That is something which we're going to be doing, and that is something which we're going to have to be doing on the go, and that's what we have to be realizing now here where we are, this position in point in time where, of course, we are developing ourselves and our strategies into this bipolar new world order to, of course, continue the strategy for the bipolar dominion of the total bipolar dominion of the North American civilizational conflicts. If we're going to fuse in a dominion, of course, which we are involved with, which, of course, we have to congruently and with strong and energetics say yes, just like it will be a divine revelation, but a divine revelation, of course, merely in the geopolitical sphere. So it has nothing to do with anything else but geopolitics. So that is something which you got to keep in mind. Nothing to do but with geopolitics. I'm just going to take a look at those flowers. I don't have much, how many seconds I have to traverse. Those are nice yellow with that. Oh yeah, I got enough time. How many seconds? See another bus with 44 on the back. 44, that's the third one, and the other one has 40. So as we're gonna transpose, now we got 6 seconds. I'm gonna speed it up a bit. Speed it up. That's how we are, and that's how we do here. And see, this is a nice blue one if you check. Blue. It's very rare that they blue, but that one is, I guess. And That's something which we have to be. If you notice, hey, that's a blue one, and there's not a lot of blue ones, you know. That's what we got, and that's what we got to rock and roll. So back to geopolitics. The main the main strategy points is, of course, to keep in mind that we are where I have predicted us, you know, that we are. So I predicted an international conflagration back in 2019. Back in 2019, you know. 2019, October, November. In October, November, I predicted, of course, an international conflagration. October, November. I have proof. I have the proof to show it online, you know. So have the proof of work. I predicted what's happening now. I predicted a World War III type of situation, and seemingly we have been headed towards that direction. But just to keep in mind, one of my predictions was based in the fact and on the fact that we had, I say human civilization, mankind as a whole. I'm expressing myself using a plurality of the word in English, we. Love me some crane operators. I got a crane fetish, you already know from past videos. And crane conductors, crane operators. We're gonna build the fort together. Speaking of building the fort, let me get back to what I said when I said we. I predicted that humanity, the international world, and of course the world is heading again towards an international conflagration, and of course I had predicted it in a multi-circumstantial or multi-event, multi-category way. But of course the main point was that due to the unresolved conflicts of the 20th century, and of course many conflicts had remained unresolved from the Cold War period. If you look, of course, what's happening now, Russia and Ukraine are unresolved conflicts which date from the Cold War era. So basically, since I specialize in the Cold War, keep in mind that that was my prediction. That due, of course, the fact that many nation states, regions have now resolved their conflicts from the 20th century and the Cold War period exactly, which lasted between 1947 and 1991, between March 1947 and December 1991. So that's more than almost 45 years, 44 years and 9 months. 44 years and 9 months. So between 1947, March 1947 and December 1991. So that's more than 44 years, almost 45 years. Some say even 45, 46 years. So keep that in mind, that that is the duration of the Cold War, which of course had lasted so much. A long period of time. Extremely long. 1947 to 1991. Right? And the dissolution of the Soviet Union in December 26 by Perestroika, Gorbachev's initiative, since it was one of the big, the formation and the dissolution of the Soviet Union, aka the Soviet Empire, the USSR, the United Socialist Soviet Republic, was main events. The rise of the Imperial Japan and rise of Nazi Germany, of course, were all big events, but it's in the top 5. The rise and the fall of the Soviet Union. The dissolution, that is, and its beginnings, November Revolution of 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution. I'm not going to divulge, because if you want to commission work on that, Leninism and Trotskyism, that's independent. Keep in mind that my specialty is Cold War period. And of course, during the Cold War, it was the USSR. The United Socialist Soviet Republics, the USSR, the communist socialist. Well, socialism is as a work towards communism. I'm not going to go into socialist communist ideology, but nonetheless, that's what it is. That's what it is, and that's what we got. So complementary in the covenant way, it is something which we have to be doing. Consequently, to get it going, something which we have to be arbeit about as we do this geopolitical work together. Myself as an N.A.C.W.P theoretical analyst and strategist, a North American collective, which my theories are for North America, because as much as I know the ideologies, the philosophies of Xi Jinping's China, I never lived in China, I never lived in the Middle East, in Israel, but here, really, you know? So that's what it is, and that's what, as much as I'm a mystic, and I believe in reincarnations, and I can venture my expressions from the education which is external, not from an immediate experience. Not from an immediate experience. So not from an immediate experience. Therefore, my valuation and my analysis will lack the individual experiences basically in the perimeter of those social cultural spheres which I can analyze from a geopolitical perspective, right? So as I analyze from a geopolitical perspective those spheres internally and consequently and integrally to the social organizations and structures of those specific nation states, whether the post-Soviet Union such as Moldova, Georgia, Kazakhstan, of which there are 15 SSRs, right? Former socialist Soviet republics, of which Georgia is one, of which Moldova is another, of which Ukraine was part of. Ukraine was part of the USSR, of which Belarus was, right? So keep this in mind consequently. So as much as I can pronounce myself on all these different issues, it is something which I have to consequently keep in mind that it will never reach the scale. It will never reach the scale of me as having lived there, as me as having lived there. Having lived there, to be consequently on the conclusive side of the left and on the right, and that's what we have to be doing. So that is something which we have to be consequently and prudently involved about. In all the theoretical polemics which we might have, that's just how this circumstantial fear is on the level of analysis, makes us open to those, makes us circumstantially that we are on the left and on the right and in the middle. Sometimes we have to get it in the middle on that, and that's we gotta do it from the side of the middle on the appellations of the verbiage and the verbosities which we might influence ourselves in different strategical manner. But nonetheless, that's what I can summarize without continuing my academic scholarly forbearance, that it is just the complexity of the situation which can manifest itself, that I predicted what's happening now based on the fact that humanity did not fully resolve their 20th century conflicts, and thus, due to those unresolved conflicts, these conflicts are gonna restart and recommence. And for the most part, that's what has been happening. I'm just gonna go throw something in the garbage there because I think I got some more garbage with that. So prudently and consequently, those are the main areas of which you need to be aware of consequently, and in the prudent manner of which, of course, we are situationally aware, to get it on the complexities on the side by which, of course, we manifest on internally consequential prudence. And we have to be realizing that we have to be spherical about it, meaning that this sphere, and of course this spherical analysis, I'm not going to go into the theorizing of the spherical analysis or whatever consequentially we have to be prudent about, whatever the consequential nature of the things which we are involved with is gonna do on the up and on the side with it. But that is just, of course, the levels of the analysis which we have to be doing on the consequential things of where we are, in the left, in the right, and in the middle, and then consequently the whole domain and the array of possibilities that the conflicts is going to escalate, as of course it was, of course, propitious to the escalatory manner of which we have escalatory manners of which we have seen in the India and Pakistan, which of course they finally resoluted, and they finally resoluted to be in the consequential prudence, and the consequential prudence of which we have to be acknowledging on the direction of the domains of which it could have escalated, or of course in the consequential prudence of the escalation of the towards a nuclear war, towards a nuclear war, and complemented a nuclear war to be, of course, diverted, because it's a possibility because of all those nuclear ICBM rockets which were built between the 1947 and 1991, which were of course built between 1947 and 1991 in the escalations of the domains which we are to be propositioned about, of course, to get it on the left and on the right, and in the middle of the duration of the Cold War period, whether we agree that it was, of course, 44 years and 9 months, almost 45 years or not. because I stayed close to 45 years, almost 45 years. Some say 46 years, some say 47. That's just a little polemic, which I do not object to really in the terminologies, or you can agree a bit. But the point, fundamental fact is that Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and that Russia and Ukraine were both united under one flag, one party state system, known as the USSR, United Socialist Soviet Republic. So that cannot be, we can disagree about the whole duration of the Cold War, but we cannot disagree that Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union along with other socialist Soviet republics. Right? So that's the most important part. And the point is that these conflicts, which have returned, even the conflict between India and Pakistan and even Israel, the Middle East, Israel, Hamas, date from the Cold War period. Furthermore, we can extend it to Taiwan, the ROC Republic of China. The ROC Republic of China is but it's in Asia, but it still dates from the conflict, which of course has proposed itself to not be fully resolved. So keeping this in mind here, I have to bend here a bit, It's usually wait about 10 seconds, 20 seconds, to get just get a little bit of seconds. I thank you workers who built this one here, and of course it's something which we have to be meditating about, that we need it, and of course it's something which we really need to get doing under proposition things of which we are here fully involved to get it going and to get on that hydration state about 10 seconds after even 10, and it's something which was built new here. So thank you, public workers. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Oh wow. That was a much needed for the road. So we will have to agree that Russia and Ukraine were united together in a one political entity known as the United Socialist Soviet Republics. Like I said, that's basically perhaps the most important aspect and the most important part of the whole domain of the whole situation. That is perhaps the most important part. The most important part is probably that. So I predicted that these conflicts are going to resurface. So that's what has happened. If you look, the fact is that those conflicts that is just something. The children are happy, I'm happy. That's the most important thing. So that's what we got, and that's what we gotta get doing on that. So the strategy and the strategical point is, of course, that I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. So back in October 2019, that's what I predicted, consequently. So keeping that in mind, of course, of this prediction, we go to other conflicts which, of course, almost started and almost evaluated, almost commenced, and, of course, almost degenerated into nuclear war. Of course, the conflict between India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan. This is a conflict which was not resolved for post 1947, at the end of the Cold War. India and Pakistan. It's the Kashmir situation. Kashmir conflict dates since 1947. 1947. That was the partition of India, 1947. So keep in mind that this, of course, conflict was possibility of escalation, and they both have nuclear weaponries, an ICBM rocket. So keep that in mind. And of course, 2 months ago, last month, a few weeks ago, that was the conflict, which of course was to be projected if it's going to continue or if it's not going to continue, and it might restart any second, because it's just like Taiwan. There's no final resolution to that conflict. Keep that in mind. Here we made what I call the great linguistic compromise with the French language, but also I have to make an effort myself if I don't make an effort. So it requires some understanding and education of the transformation of the North American collective and of Quebec as a Quebecer Canadian North American in the whole societal complex of the North American collective, because we are 9 million Quebecers who speak French and who we love our French language. And this is the great linguistic compromise of which we made. As you can see, last year what Trudeau made, or 2 years ago, when was it, is of course Trudeau mass invested in the French language, in financing the French language, because it was a point of contention, and this is something which we always bring and give to the table. So to keep that in mind, that here the French language is something which we did. So the French language is something which is, of course, is an expression of the social-cultural sphere in the North American collective of the dynamics of the French language as we have it today, as is expressed today in everyday environments in Quebec, also known as La Belle Province. So that is something which similarly we have to give, and we have to, of course, meditate, and also all who come to join us here to make us sure and incentivize and make our effort for the French language. Because if I don't speak and I don't make my effort and somebody else doesn't make, and it's a proper way to do it, and of course to make it on the proper way to do it, we of course sometimes have to visualize on the transgressive side of things that we have to get very peculiar about certain things, and sometimes my aspiness might impede certain collaboration, and so we got to build some bridges. And I'm just gonna check out some lotus here. We got that lotus. See, these are all lotus here. See, these are all lotus flowers. Are they lilies or lotus? Lilies or lotus? Lilies, lotus. Hey, there's a few over there, white ones, see? I see them blurred, but anyways, I don't want to stop too much, but maybe next time check some more. So the protuberance of these characteristics of the French language of Quebec is a great linguistic compromise which we made, right? So back to what I predicted before I go into the DRT, exactly due to these facts that many conflicts were not resolved. So that was in October and November 2019, that they're going to restart, and it's going to move us towards the Third World War. Unresolved 20th century conflicts, right? 20th century conflicts, predominantly from the Second World War, of which Ukraine, Russia is an unresolved conflict from the Cold War period, which lasted again almost 45 years. So those conflicts were not fully resolved. In China, an ROC is a conflict which actually predates a bit, but it kind of dates in the 1949, October 1949, when Mao Zedong officially proclaimed the People's Republic of China and led the Communist Party of China to power. And paradoxically, they were able to withstand, although there was the Tiananmen Square event in 1989, it was the Tiananmen Square event, they were able to withstand and maintain the one-party communist system, right? So that is just fundamentally something which, of course, we got to keep in mind. So in theory, in the prosecution of the analysis, as much as I know the ideologies, and of course, if you want to discuss People's Republic of China and the Taiwan affair, you have to understand and know a little bit, and know quite in depth, maybe a bit more than a bit, about the volumes known as the governance of China. governance of China, governance of China, governance of China are of course Xi Jinping's thoughts and theories, which are of course the modern philosophy governed of course by the supreme leader of the Publik, which of course he's the only leader now who's actually the president, the chief of staff, and the commander-in-chief, and the secretary general. So he kind of merged four different offices into one office for the first time. Xi Jinping, who's the de facto leader of China since 2012, right? And they have the Politburo and the functioning of the People's Republic of China. And Taiwan is known as the ROC, Republic of China. So Taiwan is known as the ROC. And of course, in all the official statements of the People's Republic of China, they view it as a province, as integral part of the People's Republic of China. Even 2 days ago, I got shivers when I heard the statements. And of course, they cannot rule out military alliance. They cannot rule out military invasion by force. They have not ruled out. Because I'm not going to go into the details, of course, all the details of their proponents and different details, because there's a lot of details to it. But of course, fundamentally and in essence, is something which we have to be prudent about as we go on the dictum, of course, analyzing the circumstantial elements of the People's Republic of China vis-a-vis the Republic of China, which is officially Taiwan. Taiwan is known as the Republic of China, ROC, and the PRC, People's Republic of China, is the mainland China of the country of 1.4 billion people, while Taiwan has about 25 million only. Not only because it's still big, but in comparison to the People's Republic of China. So if you want to discuss a bit, you have to, if you don't know, if you haven't read or haven't get acquainted to the philosophies and the principles outlined, of course, in the governance of China, which are mostly Xi Jinping's based thoughts, theories, and philosophies, and reanalysis of Mao Zedong's thoughts and writings, such as, of course, the Red Book, then we cannot really discuss much, because it requires, to understand 21st century China, not the China of the 20th century, the China of today, 21st century China, 21st century China, that's what it requires, to understand 21st century China, that's something which you have to be understanding about on the protrusion to get it on the signal of to get basically the whole message, the whole core area message, to get it in and to get comprehensive about all the analysis of which we are and where we are. As this sunset is coming, we have to know the governance of China. Yeah, a little bit about it is required to discuss 21st century China. If you want to discuss Cold War China, 20th century China, then it's more Mao Zedong's Red Book and Deng Xiaoping's who opened up, kind of did the reform, 1978, who did the reform of 1978, and that's what we did with the 1978 reforms, and that's what we got to get on those reforms which are done. And here we got a little bit Aspies. It's not a mental illness, but here we got Mental Health University Institute. You got the Universal Mental Health University Institute, but of course the Mental Health University Institute, the Mental Health University Institute. But Asperger's, there's no medications, for Asperger's and that, there's no mental health. There's no mental health issues with me anymore. I was depressed, I was suicidal. I would get moody, but just somebody to give me a massage, Somebody, that's all I really need to be even more joyous and less stressed and less moody, is to have a regular massage therapy. That's what will really change and embellish my life, protrudingly, because we get those illusions. The body is of course for pleasure and purpose. The body is of course temple for pleasure and purpose. That I get it. We need cars and get us from point A to point B, and I love transportation, I love science, I love technology. My spiel is geopolitics. I love cars. I would love to have a Cadillac 1963 Caddy. That's about it, but that's all we got. And I got to give a contingency, because now you see how my brain works, because it's geopolitics 24/7 to study the analysis. I cannot but help to, of course, integrate all these big poles. See, all this electrical currents which are transporting electricity from the hydroelectric dams, of course, to know, of course, that they are zero pollution, zero emission, and of course zero pollution and zero emission. Of course, these are the transmission lines which were built in the 21st century, and of course we sometimes take for granted, but so much blood and sweat and tears to build all these poles across Canada, United States joint for us to have electricity, of course. And these are open for sabotage and espionage. I'm not, I'm not pro-Trump, I'm not right-wing, I'm not pro-Trump. I know my geopolitics. As much as, of course, I support peace through strength, but 50%. I understand peace through strength, the philosophy. I don't fully support peace through strength because it has to be counterpoised, counterbalanced by other elements, such as love and understanding, protrude into our social, cultural, multi-plural dynamics of the North American collective without being too academic. The way we express ourselves in our culture, in our rock and roll, in our rap, in our music, in our, of course, sports and physicality. I love dancing is my favorite sport, but I love my 49ers. One of my favorite Super Bowls is Super Bowl 47, Blackout Ball, so Pro Bowl, and I will to build together the four, of which one, of course, is to be the North American Imperial Coliseum, whence me and Donald Trump are going to, of course, inaugurate it by inauguration, by fighting on the Canadian-U.S. border, by fighting on the Canadian-U.S. border, by fighting on the Canadian-U.S. border. Because I've been challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since 2018. And yes, today, all our elements, Canada and United States, both, they're open for sabotage and espionage and even spying and even hacking. That's what it is with that, and that's what we have to be doing. For the go and for the left and for the side and for the zigzag and for the rock and roll, and that's what we are. And that's what we gotta get doing for the sun here. The sun is rising and the sun is setting, and that's what we got, and that's how we rock and roll. They're turning here on Leclerc, and see this big pole. See how big it is? Superstructure, but these are contingent because our electricity goes to 5 or 6 states: Maine, Vermont, even, of course, New York, New Jersey, all the way to Manhattan Island. So keep that in mind. And of course, there's a part of the strategy, of course, which we have to initialize and initiate, that the strategy for the building more dams in my DRT theory to be implemented to build more dams and to consequently integrate all the citizens' mobilization for total security, total service, total defense by the new 911 Dragonomy protocols, which we have to be implemented in the transposition of the things of the state. We have to get the integration with all the existing institutions and organizations such as the RCMP, which has to become the Republican police force, the RPF, part of the Dragonomy initiatives, something, of course, which we have to do consequently. So these are the points of contention when we discuss geopolitics. So keep it, of course, on the left and on the right and in the center. It is, of course, the policies and the political contingency which we have to be doing on the left and on the right, and on the do and on the left and on the that's what we have to be doing. So that's what we have to be analyzing, not only analyzing and strategizing, but taking direct action. I'm not referring to the direct military action, which is one of my theory of which what fundamentally caused many diaspora communities, or non-NATO member diaspora communities, of which I've written a theoretical paper, which is mostly academic, and scholarly, and public-private partnership based a few years ago. The public-private partnership North American initiative for peaceful resolution with non-NATO diaspora members, with non-NATO's diaspora members, the non-NATO diaspora members, because due to the DMA, direct military action of NATO, several NATO, of course, which involved the directive, of course, to utilize, of course, fundamental direct military action, has caused that we have, of course, now fundamental elements which are potentially developing into antagonistic groupings, which can, of course, do a lot of sabotage and create internal discord and sabotage and problems in the North American Collective in NORAD, NATO countries. This is for NATO specifically. So that's what I'm saying, that today we are at risk. We're at risk due to these fundamental factors and powerful nation states due to our involvement and our continuing foreign affairs initiatives and strategies and developments, that we are now open for potential sabotage and espionage, and even these powerful nation states groups with economic resources, financial resources, for them to mass finance internal underworld criminal organization, underworld criminal organizations to finance direct underworld criminal groups, crime families, underworld, the criminal underworld, criminal forces, in order to foment discord, create riots, unrest, and all sorts of problems internally, right? It's on my intellectual, academic, scholarly, cratocratic analysis, because it all has to do with geopolitics. They can employ criminal underworld organization. Look at those beauties, so nice. That's why it's possible, eh? So that's why my new 911 Dragon Army total protocols for the North American Collective for total security, total service, total defense, best for the North American Collective. These are theories which have to be put into practice ASAP. It starts with me here today on this March Monday. But my brothers and sisters, we are at risk now more than we are. It's a dangerous situation now. It's a political situation. As much as I don't support peace through strength fully. Peace through strength fully. Peace through strength fully. Peace through strength. Peace through strength. What? What? Back up. That's why you have to be fundamentally inclusive, of course, in our domain, which we have, of course, on the propositions of things which we have to be arising us. We have, of course, to get it on the go and get it on the left and on the right, with the left and in the centrist, in a centrist manner best. So basically now I'm going to discuss by DRT theory. Super important that I discuss the DRT theory as I turn my head left and right here. But again, I predicted what's happening now, brothers and sisters. I have proof, and fundamentally, again, we are at big risk now. And we have the paradox of the rearmament of Germany, and both the rearmament of Germany, a paradox and a taboo broken here in the Western world, right? Because Germany was post-Second World War, and their imperialistic, militaristic, aggressive expansion in both the First and the Second World War, and the Nazi era. Right? Some say Nazi empire, I guess. It was an empire for maybe 4 years. I guess at one point between 1940 and 1944 it was. I guess some say the Nazi empire lasted 4 years and 3 months or whatever. I'm not sure. Some say that's about from 1940, after the annexation of Austria and the conquest of Poland. I guess it was an empire then. So 1940, March, February 1940 till September 1944. So what, 4 years and 3 months maybe? Something like that, whatever. Well, it was an empire. At one point it was, I guess, for more than 4 years it was an empire. But then it kind of ended abruptly, I guess, post 1944, right? September, whatever. So that's a taboo which has been broken also in Asia. The rearming of Japan, because Japan also has a imperialistic, nationalistic, militaristic, aggressive, expansionistic history during the first half of the 20th century. Japan was a big empire at one point between 1920 and 1945, right? For like 25 years, it was a big expansionistic empire, and it conquered a lot of China and lots of the Philippines, and all the way to Australia, So they also had a peaceful constitution in Germany. So these two taboos have been broken now. In Japan, paradoxically, due to the rise of China, and in Europe, paradoxically, due to the re-rise of Russia, and some say re-rise of China, because China at one point was an empire as well. At one point it was. In the parallel life, I know everything there is to know about those 3Gs, 4Gs, 5Gs. I build satellite supercomputers, ICBM rockets, and super microchips, supercomputers, because I also have Asperger's, but in that parallel universe life, I'm an Aspie scientist, super scientist, and my special interest all revolves around science, physics, mathematics, radio waves, and those are telecommunication towers. And anybody who knows more about them, please let me know more information. I always like to know more conclusively about the 5G and the 3Gs and all the 3Gs, 4G, 5Gs, of course, as they're incremental, because we got to build a new plateau in the 21st century for total security, total service, and defense, as we're going to move to implement my new 911 protocols the coming days, weeks, and months. Let's sign it September 11th. For total security, total defense, total security, service, and defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Of course, post 9/11. Of course, to do it on 9/11. 9/11. Of course, let's sign it September 11th on the Mountain Mount Royal. Sign a new constitution, the democratic imperial constitution, new constitution for fusing Canada, United States, and creating the democratic imperial republic, and the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions. The Dragon Army, aka North American, or the Imperial SSD Legion, Security Service and Defense Legion, beautiful garden there, parallel to the Imperial Dance League, for the Empire, the Imperial Dance League, and to be integrated, the Dragon Army, aka Imperial SSD Legion, Security Service and Defense Legion, to be, of course, integrated, SSD to be integrated with all existing institutions and organizations of security, of service, and our defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. A total service, total security, total defense complex, where we're going to build those 44 tunnels, and of course mass rebuild in North American ghettos of Canada, United States, the inner urban cities, and rehabilitate the criminal population in order to build those 44 tunnels and implement my DRT, the debt refusion theory, for the bipolar imperial strategy for fusion Canada, United States, for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion. Look at those beautiful flowers. So we're at risk. I predicted what's happening now, and now I'm going to discuss my DRT theory, because it's part, of course, of the bipolar strategy. Again, not to be confused with bipolar as in a psychological condition, but strictly merely from a geopolitical perspective, as of course we're gonna go on that rock and roll. So farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, for the Empire it's pledged. It's for the truckers, the butchers, the nurses, daycare workers who change some diapers, for all who come to join us. The DRT, debt refusion theory, again, it's part of the bipolar, not to be confused with the psychological condition, but it's a bipolar, of course, strategy for the North American Collective, for the Republican Imperial Dominion, of course, for total security, total service, total defense. It's part of course, the strategy, which is ongoing, which, of course, we're going to develop together. The DRT, debt refusion theory, includes monetary integration theory. What is monetary integration theory? Monetary integration theory is, of course, the financial theory, which has to be implemented in the Concordium, and, of course, it has to be implemented ASAP. Why do I make that statement? Of course, because due to the fact that, of course, the current situation and worldwide situation, but I'm respectively only referencing Canada, United States, respectively, because of course the other civilizations or nation states, they have the similar situation, but this is the bipolar, meaning binational, which strategy which we're going to implement, which constitutes implementing the DRT, debt refusion theory. D for debt, R refusion T for theory, and which includes monetary integration theory. So keep in mind again that the DRT, debt refusion theory, is to be implemented Canada, United States jointly, and then it could be expanded. Whoever wills to join our coming democratic imperial republic and this new constitution, which we're gonna hopefully sign together September 11th on the mountain at a new table Mount Royal for a new public-private partnership situational complex, with a new arrangement. We're going to finance Medicare health and mass finance citizens wellness, mass finance tourism, because it did me great good across the 10, the 50, and the 310 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, which we're going to fuse. And of course, where we're going to finance mass financing citizens to work out, train, exercise, and it requires a massive public-private partnership in order to do so. Consequently, the DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, fundamentally is something which we have to be implementing and something which we have to be doing on that. And Here we're gonna turn your head left and right before you cross the street, and that's all we're gonna turn our head up. But I gotta watch it. Sometimes they come fast and you gotta be on the move a little bit, because best if I go where the lights are, you know. If I go where the lights are, best. Sometimes they come fast, and I guess it's more strategic and more consequential to go where the lights are. Traffic lights, that is. They're traffic lights, that's why it's better to do it on the traffic lights, and that's what I do to get consequential lights, and that's what we gotta get better to traverse here. It's more secure, I guess, because sometimes they come fast, the cars, and that's how we have to be doing consequently and prudently to be on the go for the 5, for the 6, for the 4, and for the left. Hey, no! I guess we're gonna have to be patient. Let's take a look at this little car. Let's make it 4 times this size and build dragon trucks, which look like this for total security, total service, total defense. And I guess I can cross on the other side now. So the DRT, debt refusion theory. My DRT, debt refusion theory, is the solution, the only solution, in the matter of fact. Well, something which resembles my theory is the solution. So it can be that it's not exactly my DRT per se, but in fundamental essence and aspects, is my DRT theory has to resemble my theory, because otherwise there's no way out of this current situation where we have now. There's no way out of the current situation where we are now. Why do I make that statement? We have 4 major economic, financial, commercial problems at the moment. Myself included, financially stressed, struggling, but always open for business. My rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, and I got some sweets at home. I got 4 little pieces of wafers, so I guess I'm gonna be eating them after I get consequential. And now I can cross the street, but sometimes I always check before I cross the street. Of course, that's complimentary for the left, for the right, and for the go on the left and on the right to get it on the crossing of the street brutally, and that's how we're gonna get on that drill, you know. So it's something which we have to be consequential about and get on that prudence on the thing that we gotta to get on the field for the left and for the right, and on the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, for all the population, the 99%, because the majority, not all, some are millionaires, billionaires. Give some to Texas, please, and for food security, don't be so selfish. And gonna hydrate and discuss the DRT fully. So we face 4 major problems today. The major problems, of course, which we face are the growing economic insecurity overall, but basically the more problematic is the prices of everything keep increasing. The prices of everything keep increasing. Everything every day is increasing. The stagnation of the salary, even rents. My rent also increased, but I'm not gonna say by how much. I'm just gonna say that is maximum 10%. Correction. Maximum $10 for me. So not more than 10. So maybe it's 10 exactly. But of course, the consequential thing which we have in common is the problem, of course, of the stagnation of the salaries. So the stagnation of the salaries, the increasing cost of living, everyday prices increase, the rents keep increasing, and the credit cards, even now somewhere across the 63 from Montreal to San Francisco, somebody swiping that credit card, and it's a record for both Canadians, Canada, United States, record credit card debt. I don't have a credit card debt, I don't have credit cards, I have $10,000 in debt myself. So what we're gonna do here is, of course, we're gonna go to the washroom, because I think I need to go. So we're gonna lock it, see how it goes. Like if we lock it there, is it that way? Let's see. I think so. Maybe here. Or maybe there. Let's see how is it that we lock it by this side? Oh no. No, and that's what we got. That's what we got on there, on this side here. Okay, so I'll see you in a bit. I'm just gonna clean a bit here, and gonna see you. Gonna pause it and That's where we're gonna pause it here. We gotta go see it on the go. Yes, yes, yes. Wash your hands, hands. So we're gonna hydrate a little bit more. Did I close the lights? Because otherwise electricity, you know. Yeah, no, I did. So more hydration and DRT. Yes, you gotta wash your hands. Please keep the protocols during COVID, you know, the hygienic. I know sometimes we revert back to the old habits. Not me. Working out, training, exercising, rock and roll, and public hygiene, and change. So important. Getting on the drill and twitch it a bit, and that's what we got. And here, this is nice, kind of nice place, you know. We got nice, beautiful, full nature here, you know. Just gotta love it on the go and love it on the now, and that's where we gotta be prudent out here to see the river. So DRT, debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE. That's the fundamental theory which we're gonna focus now. So due to the four major problems, which of course are fundamentally economic financial problems, is one is the major one, due of course to the fact that we now pay, we have record credit card debts, record debt, right? So we are fundamentally at a crucial point where we have record credit card debt, even for both. This applies for both Canada and United States. So for both Canada and United States, we have record credit card debt, even sometimes across the 63, Montreal to San Francisco, somebody swiping their cards as I pass by this big river. Snake. Montreal, Snake River, aka St. Lawrence. So even now somebody's swiping that credit card, buying, and of course we have record breaking debt, you know, record breaking debt. So that is a problematic which we have fundamentally. The record-breaking debt, that's what we have, that's how we do, and that's how we gotta get drilling on the drill. So the record-breaking debt is fundamental as we reach here this point to see this beautiful river, which is majestic and big, and of course, which we of course gotta embrace fully, and consequently in our marches here, you can even traverse and go down by it. Let's go a little bit down as we discuss the DRT and then come back up. So the DRT, due to the fact that we now pay record-breaking credit card debt, we are at a point where we have reached record credit card debt for majority of citizens of both Canada and the United States. Every other week there's in the news that we have reached record credit card debt. Never in history has it been so high. The problem is the stagnation of the salaries and the growing cost of living make it the double problem of the cost of rents. So cost of rents increasing, rents going up, prices are increasing. The stagnation of the salary is a problem. Cost of living, increase of the cost of living, everyday goods prices increasing, or the price of everything that we buy daily are increasing. The cost of rents are increasing. The stagnation of the salaries. So those four are economic problem for many, including myself. So here we got some more berries. Let's check. Oh, they grew from last time. Wow, they're so big now. These are going to waste. Look at that. Wow, so delicious. So the cost of rents. Oh, wow, look at these. So delicious. Gonna eat a bit. So the cost of rents increase on the cost of rents increase. Cost of rents increasing. That's what's happening. Oh my gosh, so many berries here. They're going to waste all the way up. It's berries all the way up. Wild berries. Cost of rents increasing. Thank you, Mother Nature, for these berries and the food security. Gonna heal my brain. Turn my brain into satellites. The DRT, debt refusion tree, is the solution. These are berries all the way there, see? It's all berries. I gotta come with I don't have a container, but maybe I'm gonna come Wednesday to take them. Wow. By Wednesday they should be here. All the way up. All the way there. All in the back. It's berries, berries, berries. All the way there. There's all berries. All field of berries, man. Going to waste. So, consequently, maybe Wednesday. I'll come back Wednesday. Look! There's berries everywhere. I'm going to waste. Oh, no. So, the debt refusion tree is the solution. So, we're going to take, because the growing price of everything is increasing, cost of goods, even my rent went up. I'm going to say not more than 10, so maybe 10 exactly, but my rent went up. How's your rent do? My rent went up. I'm not going to say by how much. I'm just going to say maximum 10. So it could be 10. So we have no choice but to implement something similar to my DRT theory, if not my DRT theory. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. And keep in mind that my DRT theory includes monetary integration. My DRT theory includes monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. The European Union. Keep that in mind. So, my DRT theory, these are so good, includes monetary integration theory, is integrated in it. So that's what you have to keep in mind. Now my DRT theory integrates monetary integration theory. So fundamentally, in essence, my DRT theory is the solution, or something which integrates my DRT theory. So, due to the fact of these four main problems, growing cost of rent, growing cost of goods, how much did the berry price go? Growing price of rent, growing food prices increasing, growing cost of living, makes it that we are fundamentally at the point of collapse, financial collapse, because it could happen tomorrow. By the economy of stock market crash, it can happen any day. So a stock market crash can happen virtually any day now. It's on the horizon. So here it is, the DRT explained. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. So my $10,000, your $10,000, their $10,000, all the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars, right? All the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars, right? We're going to convert it into US dollars. So my debt, your debt, our debt. My debt, I got $10,000 to the RBC. So my $10,000, your $10,000, my $10,000, their $10,000. So my debt, your debt, our debt, or the debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars, all the public and the private debt. So my dollars, which I got 10,000, your 10,000, all the public private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. So all the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. That money, we're going to add it, all the public private debt, we're going to add it with the US dollar, the US debt. So all that debt, all the public and the private debt, we're going to add it with the US dollar. My DRT theory again contains monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union, right? So integrated in my debt refusion theory is that theory, that financial theory known as the monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. So keep that in mind. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, my debt, your debt, my $10,000, your coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to convert all the public private debt into US dollars of Canada. We're going to add it with the United States dollars. So again, keep in mind that we have no choice really but to implement something similar to my DRT theory. We really have no choice in the matter per se, because we are on a point of financial collapse. It will require for us to do it ASAP because, of course, fundamentally, in essence, we're at that point where we're on the verge of this collapse, financial collapse. There's too much debt. Prices keep increasing every day. I saw somebody showing that a 2.63 liter orange juice was $11.59. I never seen anything like that in my life in Canada, ever. Well, from my memory, because my memory is blackout 2014, but that's still far back in history, because 2014 spring was 11 years ago. So as much as it's not like I have amnesia from 5 years ago, it's further in history. But maybe that's why I remember mostly my past lives, incarnations. When sometimes I was born a man, a woman. I lived in the United States. Seems like I hit the jackpot here. They're going to waste otherwise, so might as well eat them, eh? Such contributes to my food security, because I don't know how much the price of berry went up, but of course they kind of went up, eh? So this is wild berries. Very few people pass by here, but it's going to waste. Otherwise, in 2 weeks, these are gone. Now's the time, so. And they go all the way in the back. This is a whole harvest here. This is pounds and pounds and pounds, eh? This is hundreds, if not thousands of dollars here worth of wild berries. How much is the price? I don't know, but saw that it's very. So being that we're on a point of financial collapse, paradoxically, my DRT theory is the solution. Don't think I ever ate so many berries in my life, to be honest. Again, my memory goes back to blackout 2014, but maybe previous past life by the Nile, I guess. By the Nile in ancient Egypt. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, right? So my $10,000, your $10,000. So all the public and the private debt. I got $10,000. I don't have credit cards. I have a credit line. So all the public, private debt. We're gonna take it all, and we're gonna convert all the public private debt of Canada into US dollars. We're gonna take all the public private debt of Canada, convert it into US dollars, because my DRT has to be implemented Canada, United States. All that money, we're gonna create a new currency, added with the public private debt of the United States dollar, and we're gonna create this new currency, which we're gonna of course call the UE, U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.Unit, the UE. The Universal Exchange Unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar, right? So the Universal Exchange Unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollar, the United States dollar value. All the public, private debt of the US combined with Canadian debt But of course, the Canadian debt has to be, of course, Canadian debt has to be converted into US dollars. And of course, it has to be added with the US dollars. So all the public-private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to add it together with the US debt, and that money is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. Look at that big one. I never ate so many berries in my life. That was the best berry ever in my life. From recent memory, spring 2014. And here I am, survived. Look at these. Wow. Well, you can see the leaves are different, these are more ripe. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. Gonna convert it into US dollars. US dollars. Look at that biggie. Gonna convert it into US dollars. Of course, I'm gonna add it with the US dollar. Add it with the US dollar. Gonna add it with the US dollar. All the public-private debt. Gonna add it all up to the US dollar. All that money is gonna be rounded up. And we're gonna create this UE. UE. It's new currency. U.dot universal. U.dot exchange. U.dot UE. The UE is gonna have the value of the US dollar. We're gonna put an interest rate level of 10% on it. 10% is not gonna be able to be more than 10% on it. 10% is gonna be maximum. That's just gonna be it, the 10%. That's just gonna be the valuation. That's just gonna be the valuation. That's just gonna be the valuation, and that's just gonna be what it is. So that's the DRT. That's what it is. So that's the solution. That's the solution which we have to be implemented, and that's what we got to implementing it. The DRT, that refusion trade for the creation of the UE. So we got, we have DRT, the refusion trade, and now I ate the most berries ever in my entire life, at least from memory, in this life from 2014 spring, because I got that raw ritual. I'm usually had trouble actually my memory prior to 2014, but that's about how we're gonna rock and roll it. Here we are, on the left and on the right. Gonna give it out of sight. Oh, so good. DRT, that refusion theory, that's what we got. And so we're gonna get on that rock and roll. So yeah, wow, so many all the way in the back. It's unbelievable. So many, they're going to waste here. Eh? One more. Where you right, P? Let's go. DRT, the refusion tree. You realize there's no other solution and that we're going towards a point of financial collapse, eh? Financial collapse. Financial collapse. Because the four main problems, look at a beautiful river. Beautiful river! See how big the Snake River is? It surrounds the whole island of Montreal, aka Hawk Island. It's huge. So, because of this situation, we have to implement my DRT theory. There's just no way out of it. This is the biggest one I ever had. Wow, they're so big here. Look at that. Wow. The biggest I ever had in my life. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. Those were for the big, big, big ones. Wow. Look. Wow. That was rare. So due to that fact, we have no choice but to implement my DRT theory. Oh, I saw first, back to life. Back to life here also, there's berries, but now we're gonna head home. I'm just gonna tie my shoes. Wait a minute. Here I'm in a danger zone, so I'm not gonna tie my shoes here because it's more of a danger. I think best for me to keep going. And of course, keep going, but be careful because I'm on by the river. If I slip and fall, that would be bury me with Papa Crowley or turning me up in New Jersey. Here's best. So my assessment to tie my shoes here, best here. So the DRT, Dreadful Fusion Theory. For the creation of the UE, the universal exchanges. So once again, gonna explain it. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt. My $10,000, your $10,000. All the debt. Public and private debt. My $10,000, your $10,000. My $10,000. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the public private debt of Canada. We're gonna convert all the public private debt of Canada to United States dollars. All that money, we're gonna add it together with the United States. Look at those fireflies, fireflies, I'm alive and I'm alive. Fireflies are back to life. So we're gonna take all the public and the private, all the public and the private debt. We're gonna of course convert all the public and the private debt into US dollars. We're gonna convert it all the public and the private debt. We're gonna convert it. Now it's time to go up. So all the public private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna add it with the US, and all that money is gonna become the initial money supply plus the money in circulation of this new central bank, and we're gonna create this new currency based on the value of the US dollars, which we're gonna call the UE. U dot universal. U dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE. U dot universal, U dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE is gonna have the value of the US dollar. See how big the river is? Snake Island, aka St. Lawrence. Huge river surrounds Montreal, Hawk Island. N.A.C.W.P. Be careful here because it's problematic, you know, if you get in and out and don't get in the water. Just have places where you can just dip your feet and just go a little bit in, but don't try to swim, of course, because it's dangerous zone. So that's what it is. And don't pollute if you come here. Don't leave trash because it's part of nature. You can sit on those rocks there. But be careful because you can see how powerful it is, but you can't really sit here. You got to be careful within those rocks. I guess very extremely careful if you go here because the current is very powerful, as you can see, and you know, it can get swept. So that's how we got that rock and roll. Montreal, Hawk Island as we go. We gotta be mindful of that. And here we're gonna go up by this side, and Gonna discuss the DRT again. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. My $10,000, your $10,000, all the debt, public and private debt, beautiful weeping willows. All the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. All that we're gonna add it with the United States dollar. United States, public private debt. And we're gonna of course create this new currency, which is gonna be the UE, and it's gonna be based on the value of the US dollar. With this money, we're gonna rebuild the infrastructure of the North American Collective. Look at those fireflies. We're gonna mass finance citizens to work out, mass finance citizens to train, and mass finance citizens to exercise, and mass finance citizens, of course, to train, to exercise, and build those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. We're gonna mass finance fitness, mass finance tourism across the Imperial Collective, across the Empire, which we're gonna fuse, and of course, we're gonna build those 44 tunnels inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, and of course inspired by the Montreal Underground Village, and inspired paradoxically, I'm no fan, no supporter of Hamas, but they built tunnel complexes supposedly between 350 miles and 500 miles underneath Gaza, the Gaza Strip, hundreds and hundreds of miles underneath of tunnels built between 2007 and 2023, I guess, October 7th, when the conflict began. Again, a conflict which dates to the Cold War period, which of course Hamas was founded in the 80s during the Cold War era. So we got to build those 44 tunnels in the empire for the continuity of the North American civilizational complex of North America in case of a thermonuclear war. We got to build those 44 for the children of the empire, for the future democratic imperial republic, and the fusion of Canada and United States via the DRT. We're going to create the UE. We're going to mass finance citizens fitness, mass finance citizens to work out, train, exercise, and build the fort, the North American imperial, the greatest imperial coliseum on the Canadian-US border. We're going to get rid of the border, do a great census, create a common passport of the imperial passport, create a common census, a census, of course, a census of the population. Look at those beauties, a census of the population. That's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna create the census of the population, and that's why we're gonna rock and roll with it, and that's what we're gonna get on that drill to create the rock and roll period. And that's what we're gonna have to be doing across the North American Imperial Collective. That's what we're gonna have to be drilling on the go and drilling on the left and on the right, and that's what we're gonna have to get rock and rolling with the empire. And of course, for the 63, the North American Collective, we're gonna of course get it on and see a little bit of those those fireflies. That's what we got, and that's why we got this beautiful city here, Montreal, Hakala Metropolis, 2.5 million people. And you got, as I go now back to my headquarters, Sunset, leaders. We're gonna do lots of good with that DRT, the debt refusion theory, of course. The DRT, debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE, something which we have to get really speedy about, because the four main problems are pressing: the growing cost of living, the rents, and of course there's no end in sight for, of course, all the problems which are faced now, of course, in the North American Collective, which we have to be doing on that, which you have to be doing on the complex, and we gotta get doing on that rock and roll for the left and for the right, and for those butchers, the bakers, and the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers, the electricians, the firefighters, and the construction workers. And we're gonna build the four. That's how we're gonna go building on the four with that. That's how we're gonna be building on the four with that, and we're gonna get left and right and Z, and that's how we're gonna get doing on those butchers and the bakers and the nurses and those firefighters and those, of course, involved in the production, distribution of food, you know. That's how we're gonna get the production, distribution of food. And of course, to build those imperial complexes, the four structures, the four buildings, the North American Imperial Coliseum, which is gonna be 4 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. So we're gonna be, and we in Donald Trump, we're gonna inaugurated. So me and Donald Trump are gonna fight on the Canadian-US border, you know, to inaugurate this great complex, to be 11 times bigger than the sports coliseum which we have, and that's what we have to be doing on that, to build a sports coliseum, you know. So that's what we're gonna do, build sports coliseum on the go, and that's what we got, and that's what we're gonna be building, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. The Caesar Superdome is something which we have, and being that the Caesar Superdome is something which we have to be doing on the building, the construction thereof, and that's what we have to be doing, you know, to get on the go with that, to get on the go, you know, to get to build, you know. This is something which we have to be doing on the left and on the right, and in the side and in the left and in the Panzerschiff. That's what we have to be doing. So the North American People Coliseum is going to have to be doing on the Canadian-US border. That's what we have to be getting on that, building ASAP. Beautiful river here, the Snake River. Consequently, that's how we have to be building about around about it, to get on my left and right and get on the go, you know, to be done ASAP. So this mega structure is going to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. Before it used to be known as the Mercedes-Benz, and before that he changed name several times, just like I changed name, Louisiana Superdome. It was where my 49ers lost in Super Bowl 47, who has several nicknames such as Harbaugh Ball, aka Blackout Ball, aka Blackout Ball, Harbaugh Ball, aka Bro Balls. Something which we have to be doing on the go. We have to be doing on the... That's what we have to be building, the Forgotten Goddess, Temple Goddess, where we have rooms where people can scream, can scream, Forgotten Goddess Temple, you know, for that subconscious, irrational forces which are part of us, you know, and of course to build a pyramid, rainbow dragon pyramid, the house of the dragon pyramid. Red, scarlet, crimson or scarlets are shade of red, and the fourth one, the rainbow peoples palace for my fellow LGBTQ community and neurodivergent community, you know, for my fellow neurodivergent community, and of course something which we have and something which we go with that is something which we have to be mindful about in the protruding things of the life's forces which we have by integral individual sovereignty, protruding to another's individual sovereignty. Here, my individual sovereignty to my fellow citizens, brothers and sisters, with which post 2017, when I came out of my depression by crossing Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean, I established a strong esprit de corps, and now I'm happy, joyous, just financially stressed, but paradoxically I got to present the DRT on the table along with those trillions of kisses, trillions of marching steps, trillions of rock and roll songs every day, that rock and roll geopolitics, pledge allegiance, friends with benefits only. We're going to secure the individual sovereignty. We're going to rehabilitate much of the North American criminal population, do a census, see everybody who's been living here since 2017 in Canada, United States, for the putting on some amnesty for the building of those 44, and of course some amnesty according to the imperial contribution to build those 44 tunnels, which we're going to have to be doing conjointly, and implement the Operation Northern Scorpio via my Total Mobile Defense Theory, when those four acronyms, TMDT, Total Mobile Defense Theory, when we add the S at the end, that means that it's become a system by putting it into practice and action by all the institutions that currently exist in security, service, and defense, all the police, sheriff forces, RCMP, etc., FBI, to be protrusion for the new 911 Dragon protocols for total security, total service, total defense in the new democratic imperial complex, pledge allegiance, the DRT, debt refugee for the UE. Now we're going to switch a little bit in a minute to some French, because here we are in La Belle Province, so that's all we got to be loving about that French, a little bit of some, speaking some of that rock and roll in the French, and that's all we have to be doing on that, and we have to be consequential about the prudence of the life forces, which we have myself as an individual, part of the collective, and my contribution, your contribution, and the individual for the collective, and the collective for the individual, the creation of the Dragon Army, the North American SSD, Legion Imperial, SSD, Imperial SSD, Security Service and Defense Legion, Imperial Security Service and Defense Station, which is part of the Dragon Army contingent on the Imperial Republic, which of course is going to be constituting together here by the river, as of course we got those implementations to be on those prudent facts of the spirituality of the life forces, which is going to reinfuse and regenerate via the DRT protrude to all the social aspects and the dynamical aspects of this great democratic imperial transformation, which we're gonna undergo to get it on the do, and that's what we're gonna get on that drill and that, and that's what we're gonna get doing for now, for the left and for the right, and for the butchers and the bakers and the nurses, firefighters, the plumbers and the electricians and the bakers and the doctors, and you gotta get it all those for the Imperial Collective to look on that beautiful birds there. That's the building of those four. So we're gonna build a lot. We're gonna do a lot of that rehabilitation as we go, as we do here in the North American Empire. We're gonna get it together, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And I cannot discuss too much about my total mobile defense theory, because the total mobile defense theory requires an extensive discussion. But I cannot divulge too much information about it because it's by national security sensitive. So only with Pam Bondi and Tulsi Gabbard and Pig Hexit and Devin McGinty, all the top ranking heads of all security of Canada and United States by national joint. Pledge allegiance, Dragon Army, North American Imperial Coliseum, and that's how we got, and that's how we here in La Belle Province with the left and right, and for the prudence, and something which we have to be doing now and left, and gotta get it for the go, gotta get it for those on those toes, farmers, butchers, bakers, and firefighters, electricians, and the dynamics of the consequential things of which we are involved to get it on the love side of things, and that's where we run it now. That's where we are today. And that's where we are today. Pledge allegiance, friends with benefits only. May I be avenged at 11-fold rock and roll song, just so that you know. That's all we got, that's all we do, that's all we left on the left and right. And that's all we gotta get doing on the blasted propositions. Left and right, it's speed it, French it, because we're la belle province. Et bienvenue Québécois, Québécoises, on est à la marche, c'est le coucher du soleil, puis je vous encourage à faire l'entraînement physique. Je dois commencer par la gratitude. J'ai payé mon loyer, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, puis j'ai du thé chez nous, j'ai du café, mais du thé, je vais devoir faire bien sûr du compostage parce que je viens de voir qu'il a été donné. Ça a été donné il y a une semaine, puis la date d'expiration est passée en 2013. Vous savez que ma mémoire date de printemps 2014. J'ai la perte de mémoire moi-même, je ne m'en souviens pas bien de ma vie avant comme le printemps 2014. Puis je viens de vérifier que cette thé-là a été donné en 2013, bien sûr. Ma perte de mémoire, c'est peut-être causé, je ne sais pas si je buvais beaucoup d'alcool, des fois c'est l'alcoolisme, le traume ou la drogue qui cause la perte de mémoire. J'ai une bonne mémoire récemment, je veux dire 7, 8, 9 ans, c'est pas comme... J'ai de l'amnésie, j'ai la misère à me souvenir de ma vie avant le printemps 2014 même, que je pensais que j'allais déménager en 2016, mais c'était en 2015, ça fait déjà 10 ans que j'habite où j'habite maintenant, puis vous savez que j'ai l'Asperger, je suis autiste, hautement fonctionnel, androgyne pansexuel, votre dragon arc-en-ciel qui chante le rock'n'roll. Pour sa danse, regardez, il n'y a pas de pluie, c'est pas de tonnerre, donc elle danse les mains dans les airs, les étoiles, partout dans la province jusque dans le ciel, qui retourne aujourd'hui, puis ça danse, blablabla, les mains dans les airs. Les orteils, ça bouge de la gauche à droite comme dans un cercle. Pas besoin d'un périmètre, ben je le fais dans les airs. Et bon, c'est le rock'n'roll, bien sûr, que je fais moi-même dans ce point de consensus, bien sûr, pour le faire dans ce point de qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, aujourd'hui, de faire de l'entraînement physique que je vous encourage, bien sûr, à faire. Cet entraînement physique, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'on a à faire, bien sûr, toujours en tant qu'Asperger, c'est quelque chose de, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on aille toujours dans ce point de contingence ou qu'on soit rendu bien sûr à avoir une certaine habilitude pour pouvoir bien sûr faire des choses bien sûr qu'on soit dans ça. La même manière de parler ou de s'exprimer est un peu divergente, fait que juste un peu une minute sur l'Asperger. C'est quoi l'Asperger? Qu'est-ce qui est pas? Moi, je vis avec cette condition de neurodivergence. C'est pas une maladie mentale. C'est là, il faut qu'on fasse la distinction. C'est pas une maladie mentale. C'est pas une maladie pantoute. C'est juste que nous, les Asperger, notre cerveau, il y a des mutations. Vous comprenez? Fait qu'à cause de ces mutations, nous, on voit le monde différemment. Fait qu'à cause de ces différences, on a de la misère dans les choses sociales. On a de la misère un peu à comprendre les enjeux de la société, les enjeux, bien sûr, que ça peut être comme la manière qu'on communique, tu sais, la manière qu'on communique, c'est que la manière, bien sûr, ça peut être d'une manière verbale, bien sûr, ça peut être d'une manière, ça peut être d'une manière qu'on s'exprime, bien sûr, dans ce point de direction qu'on est rendu, mais c'est sûr que ça dépend par quel sujet qu'on s'exprime, parce que dans certains sujets, moi-même, je suis médiocre, je suis comme ça, fait que dans d'autres sujets, bien sûr, je suis pas bon, fait que dans d'autres sujets, bien sûr, c'est des choses que... Bien sûr, c'est des choses que je dois vivre avec. C'est pas quelque chose qui peut être médiqué. Tu peux pas donner des médicaments à un Asperger, à un N.A.C.P, parce que notre cerveau, il y a des mutations. Fait que c'est à cause de ces mutations, bien sûr, c'est des choses, bien sûr, que je dois vivre avec. Moi, j'aime pas la violence. Hein. Je suis quelqu'un qui n'aime pas la violence. Je l'ai vécu moi-même. Peut-être à cause de ça, j'ai perdu ma mémoire. Je me suis attaqué par surprise. J'ai connu ma tête dans un... Je connais ma tête par terre, puis j'étais tout ensanglé, tout ensanglé, fait que c'est dans cette histoire-là, bien sûr, que je dois le faire dans ce point de compromis et de contingence qu'on vit, bien sûr, pour le faire de ce point de contingence qu'on vit dans ce point de direction. Ben, bon, je me suis fait attaquer par surprise. Ben, j'étais tout ensanglé, j'ai collé ma tête, j'avais le bras droit disloqué. J'étais allé à l'hôpital général juif. Ils m'ont replacé le bras. C'était comme l'épaule. C'est comme l'épaule, tu sais, en effet, c'était comme l'épaule. Ils m'ont recraqué l'épaule, le bras droit disloqué. Puis ils m'ont mis sur des médicaments. J'étais comme dans un petit coma pendant un couple de jours. Puis j'ai la misère à me souvenir de ma vie. J'habitais dans une petite place où il y avait beaucoup de moisissures. C'était comme une petite cellule de prison. J'ai toujours servi mon temps. C'était comme une petite prison en Scott de neige sur l'île de Montréal. C'était comme une petite cellule de prison, bien sûr. C'était comme... Ben, c'était pas une prison, mais c'était comme une petite cellule, genre de prison de compromis, bien sûr. Il faut qu'il fasse pour le faire, bien sûr, dans ce compromis, bien sûr, de le faire. Bien sûr, donc on est rendu maintenant aujourd'hui. Et bien sûr, c'est des choses que on fasse. Bien sûr. Et bien, c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on aille, bien sûr, dans ce point de contingence, bien sûr, d'avoir, bien sûr, d'aujourd'hui où qu'on vit. C'est une chose qui est importante en comment je m'exprime moi-même, parce qu'à cause de les Asperger, on a des mutations dans le cerveau. Fait que juste pour en finir, j'habitais avant une petite place, là, il y avait beaucoup de moisissures, puis... Tu sais, j'ai déménagé, je pensais que c'était 2016, mais c'était 2015. Fait que ça fait 10 ans, puis le problème chez nous, j'ai les Asperger, c'est à cause de ces mutations du cerveau, on voit le monde différemment. Puis à cause de ces différences, on a de la misère dans certaines choses, c'est sûr, c'est plus difficile pour nous, la cognition des relations sociales, ou la manière qu'on interagit socialement, parce qu'il y a certaines choses que nous, on peut être direct, des fois direct, ou bien sûr, dans certaines circonstances, on a des caractéristiques. C'est pas des symptômes. Des symptômes, c'est pour une maladie, tu sais. Mais l'Asperger, c'est pas une maladie qui peut... On peut pas traiter par des médicaments, c'est sûr. Si un Asperger, comme moi, il vit la dépression, le suicide, puis moi-même, je l'ai vécu, j'étais en dépression suicidaire pendant un couple d'années, c'est sûr que s'il vit la dépression puis le suicide, c'est sûr qu'à cause de la dépression puis le suicide, mais là, c'est sûr qu'ils peuvent prendre des médicaments. Mais moi, qu'est-ce qui m'a fait sortir de ma dépression, c'est quand j'ai traversé le Canada de côte à côte. En traversant le Canada de côte à côte, en août puis en septembre 2017, ça m'a fait vraiment établir un esprit de corps solide avec le Québec, le Canada, les États-Unis. Puis depuis ce temps-là, j'ai commencé à m'entraîner. J'ai perdu entre 80 et 93 livres. J'ai écrit des documents parce que mes philosophies initiatives sont pour qu'est-ce que j'appelle le Collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. Puis je suis quand même de bonne humeur, joyeux, jovial. J'ai passé beaucoup de traverses d'épreuves. J'ai plein de cicatrices dans ma vie, mais c'est bien sûr quelque chose que, avec la gratitude, c'est super... Je suis super en équilibre avec ma santé mentale, puis depuis un couple d'années, j'ai accepté que je suis différent à cause de ces Asperger, cet autisme hautement fonctionnel de Asperger, que je n'ai pas bien, des aspects. C'est moins d'1%, c'est moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, c'est 0,44. 0,44, tu sais. C'est 0,44 qui sont bien sûr dans la contingence d'être bien sûr de 0,44 dans la manière de laquelle on vit bien sûr pour le faire, de cette convergence que ça fasse bien sûr pour le faire bien sûr de la manière qu'on vit, de la manière qu'on vit, puis qu'on s'exprime. C'est différent, tu sais, la manière qu'on s'exprime, puis qu'on vit, c'est la manière qu'on s'exprime, puis on vit, bien sûr. C'est la manière qu'on s'exprime, c'est différent. Fait qu'à cause de ces différences, comment qu'on voit le monde, puis moi, je veux pas perdre de temps à personne, parce que j'ai pas vraiment besoin d'amis, j'en ai pas beaucoup, les aspects, nous, on n'a pas beaucoup d'amis, c'est juste que je suis juste des amis avec bénéfice, puis prêter allégeance, les gens, vous êtes famille, soutenez mon rêve, c'est ça principalement dans mon travail, tu sais, parce que nous, les aspis, on trouve, j'ai pas de travail officiel en ce moment, mais je suis toujours au travail dans la géopolitique, les entraînements physiques, puis le rock'n'roll, parce que nous, le problème, bien sûr, chez nous, 3 problèmes majeurs chez les Asperger, c'est le manque d'amis. Bon, j'ai une couple d'amis, je n'ai pas beaucoup, mais c'est ça le problème chez les Asperger, puis je veux juste des amis avec bénéfice. Je veux pas perdre le temps de personne, là. Juste des amis avec bénéfice pour qu'on se comprenne bien, pour pas qu'il y ait de confusion ni de choses. Puis, je voulais faire l'amour, ça est noir et blanc. Homme-femme, vous avez 18 ans, vous êtes à l'âge adulte. On peut rock'n'roll l'amour bien comme il le faut. Le dragon arc-en-ciel avec le rock'n'roll, le massage, la lotion, blablabla. Rien savoir. Puis, sinon, je veux rien savoir. Et bien sûr, si vous voulez discuter de la géopolitique, c'est mon intérêt spécial, ou l'entraînement physique, la danse. Je suis androgyne, pansexuel, mystique dans d'autres vies, bien sûr. J'ai été né homme, j'ai été né femme, bien sûr. Dans une autre vie, j'ai été né homme, j'ai été né femme, puis bien sûr, dans une autre vie, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose que je dois le faire, puis c'est quelque chose que je dois le faire. You know? Fait que c'est quelque chose comme ça. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que je dois le faire dans ce point de contingence. Et bien sûr, c'est ça, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse. Et donc, c'est ça. C'est ça que je vis avec. L'Asperger, je suis différent, je sais. Ben, je dois dire des salutations à mon ami anonyme qui m'avait donné, bien sûr, 2 livres, puis un livre, m'avait prêté un livre que ça exprime. Bien sûr, ça exprime, bien sûr, la différence, laquelle que je vis moi-même, tu sais. La différence, c'est la même que moi je vis moi-même avec cette différence. Et comment que j'ai des vulnérabilités aussi, parce que les Asperger, on a de la misère à comprendre les enjeux non écrits de la société puis des choses comme ça. Par exemple, je vais vous donner un exemple concret. Si quelqu'un me demande, puis comment ça va, je vais dire comment ça va. Si ça va mal, je dis ça va mal. Je suis en crise financière, d'habitude, je dis je suis stressé financièrement, puis c'est vrai, mais même aujourd'hui, je filais pas, bien sûr, blablabla, je filais pas, bien sûr, blablabla. Bien sûr, je filais pas trop, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence, blablabla. C'est bien sûr quelque chose que je disais bien sûr que j'aurais goûté un bon massage, mais je peux pas me permettre d'avoir un massage, là, mais je vais me contenter pour pouvoir, avec la gratitude, de pouvoir, bien sûr, me permettre de prendre un bain, par exemple. Fait que je vais prendre un bain pour faire le remplacement. Fait que j'ai eu bien de l'emploi, j'ai bien aimé, sauf qu'à cause de l'Asperger, ça a duré 4 mois, 3 mois, 2 semaines, 2, 3 jours, parce que le problème majeur, c'est nous, chez les Aspis, on n'est pas beaucoup d'Asperger, on est 0,44%, c'est moins de la moitié d'un pourcent, là. Moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage. Il n'y en a pas bien, il y en a bien qui ne savent même pas c'est quoi l'Asperger, aussi connu comme l'autisme hautement fonctionnel. Et bien sûr, c'est ça le problème, c'est le taux de dépression puis de suicide, il est 9 fois plus que vous, puis je dois toujours, en tant qu'Asperger, bâtir des ponts, des petits ponts, des moyens, des super gros, des super larges ponts avec vous. Des fois, c'est des super extra larges. Mais il n'y a pas de relation antagoniste. Moi, j'ai pas de sentiment négatif. J'ai compris que ces dernières années, comment moi je suis différent, comment je vois le monde différent, comment mon aspect, mes caractéristiques, c'est pas des symptômes. Des symptômes, c'est pour une maladie. C'est des caractéristiques que nous, les Asperger, on a, que les gens ils comprennent mal. Des fois, c'est un peu étrange, bizarre. C'est un peu bizarre, étrange, un peu anormal, un peu hors norme de la société. Fait que c'est juste ces choses-là, il faut nous le dire directement, tu sais. Il faut nous le dire directement, bien sûr, pour la faire dans ce point de convergence, pour qu'on fasse, bien sûr, pour faire de la palaise, bien sûr, d'avoir, bien sûr, ce point de contingence, d'avoir vécu puis de vivre, bien sûr, au quotidien, qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, au quotidien à vivre avec vous, la majorité des gens, en tant qu'aspi, cette petite minorité, il faut toujours qu'on y travaille, tu sais. Il faut toujours qu'on y travaille, bien sûr. Fait que dans ce point de contingence, il faut toujours qu'on s'exprime de cette manière, d'où qu'on est rendu à être différent, de cette manière de vivre au quotidien, tu sais. Fait que d'avoir manière de vivre au quotidien, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que dans l'exprimation de vivre au quotidien, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que je dois quand même faire une contingence d'avoir vécu aujourd'hui. Fait que c'est ça, j'aime ça voir les gens qui s'entraînent. Fait que c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je continue moi-même, mon entraînement, j'adore ça. J'ai perdu entre 80 et 99, 93 livres, fait que c'est sûr que maintenant, bien sûr, je suis à l'entraînement physique moi-même. Fait que bon, c'est ça l'Asperger, c'est ça l'autisme fonctionnel. Un petit résumé là, que je l'ai fait, c'est sûr que j'ai pas fait une thèse sur l'Asperger, mais juste pour que vous savez. Puis là, je vais discuter de qu'est-ce qui est l'important, la géopolitique, hein, parce que c'est ça mon intérêt spécial. Je suis moi-même un analyste théoricien en géopolitique indépendant. Et je dois dire, bien sûr, dans cette analyse de la géopolitique, bien sûr que moi-même, je suis à l'être aujourd'hui. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe aujourd'hui, ces dernières années, en 2019, en octobre, en novembre. J'ai même la preuve pour cela. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019. Vous avez la preuve pour ça. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019, en octobre, en novembre. En octobre, en novembre, en octobre, en novembre. En octobre, en novembre. J'ai prévu, bien sûr, la situation actuelle qu'ils vivent aujourd'hui. Et bien sûr, j'ai prévu, bien sûr, cette situation de le faire dans ce point de contention que je suis rendu maintenant. Je suis bon à ça, je suis bon au rock'n'roll. Dans d'autres choses, je suis pas bon. Mais j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant, en 2019. Basé sur des analyses un peu académiques complexes, mais pour faire un petit résumé, c'est qu'à cause que bien des pays n'ont pas été capables de résoudre leurs problèmes du 20e siècle, que ces problèmes, ces conflits vont reprendre au 21e siècle. C'est ça qui arrive, hein? La Russie et l'Ukraine, c'est des conflits qui datent de la guerre froide. Hein? C'est des conflits qui datent de la guerre froide. En Israël, en Palestine, la marche était fondée dans les années 80. La Chine puis le Taïwan potentiellement, puis le conflit qui vient de se passer entre l'Inde puis le Pakistan, c'est des conflits, bien sûr, qui datent depuis 1947. Ça fait longtemps, imaginez-vous, tu sais. C'est des choses que vous devez quand même tenir en considération vis-à-vis des analyses et théories en géopolitique qui sont fondamentalement pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, pour la fondation d'une constitution nouvelle, puis la fondation de fusionner le Canada et les États-Unis à ma manière par un partenariat public-privé, puis la constitution de deux nouvelles institutions de partenariat public-privé qui sont en conséquence et consensuelles avec cette production de qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui en point majeur. Et c'est bien sûr dans cet état d'esprit qu'on doit vivre aujourd'hui, dans ce point de contention qu'on vit, où qu'on s'exprime de la manière, bien sûr, où qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui pour faire affaire ensemble, moi en tant qu'individu, bien sûr, moi en tant qu'individu, ça, bien sûr, pour le faire dans ce point de contention, bien sûr que vous savez, bien sûr, qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui, le 2025. Fait que là, je vais vous parler d'une solution, la TRD, parce que c'est ça le plus important. La solution pour la situation économique, financière, la géopolitique, ça va ensemble. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est la solution qui va nous sauter. On est proche d'avoir un effondrement financier au Canada et aux États-Unis à cause des 4 problèmes majeurs. Bah, là, on est rendu à avoir plus de dettes, les cartes de crédit, même maintenant à travers Montréal, à travers juste de Montréal à San Francisco, il y a des gens qui dépensent leur carte de crédit, ça processe à la vente, puis ça s'en va de plus en plus en dette. Ce problème-là, vis-à-vis de l'augmentation des loyers, moi-même, mon loyer a augmenté, je dirais pas par combien, je vais dire juste que maximum 10. C'est peut-être exactement 10 $, là. C'est peut-être 10 $ ou moins, pas plus que 10, mais peut-être 10. Je dirais pas plus sur ma conscience. Moi, je peux pas me plaindre. C'est quand même quelque chose que je trouve que je peux pas me plaindre pour un 10 $, là, quand même. Je trouve que c'est quand même justifié dans mon cas pour 10. Je pourrais le permettre, c'est pas plus que 10, même si ça a été 10, ou peut-être moins que 10. Bon, fait que les prix, le loyer, l'endettement et les prix du pain, du beurre, du fromage, des œufs, ils n'arrêtent pas d'augmenter. Vous remarquez à tous les jours là, que je vais dans certains produits, puis je vois aujourd'hui sur YouTube, j'ai jamais vu ça, un jus d'orange de 2,63 litres, même pas 3 litres, il était à 11,59. C'était pas dans le Grand Nord, là, parce que je sais bien qu'en Nunavut, dans le Grand Nord, c'est ce problème-là, mais c'était, je pense qu'en Colombie-Britannique ou quelque chose. 11,59 pour un 2 points. D'habitude, c'est 5,99, ça. Fait que, vous imaginez, j'ai jamais vu ça, moi, avant. 11,59, c'est quand même... C'est quelque chose que j'ai jamais vu, puis bien des prix qui augmentent. Fait que c'est ça le problème majeur qu'on vit maintenant. C'est pour ça la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, pour la création de la nouvelle monnaie ensemble. La TRD, c'est la solution à ces problèmes majeurs économiques. Donc, je vous ai donné les 4. Les prix des loyers qui augmentent les prix du loyer, les prix, bien sûr, de tous les biens du quotidien. Puis le 4e, c'est les salaires qui stagnent, la stagnation des salaires, là. Fait que c'est la stagnation des salaires. Fait que la stagnation des salaires, vis-à-vis, bien sûr, cette stagnation des salaires, il y a bien sûr un problème, encore une fois, c'est bien sûr l'augmentation des prix. L'augmentation des prix. Les prix augmentent. Les loyers augmentent, les salaires, ils stagnent. Et le 4e, ou dans quel ordre, mais il y en a 4 majeurs, c'est le surendettement par les cartes de crédit. Ben, c'est ça le problème. Fait qu'on est proche d'avoir un effondrement financier. On est proche d'avoir un effondrement financier. Un effondrement financier. On est proche d'avoir un effondrement. Un effondrement financier. Non? On est proche d'avoir un effondrement financier. C'est peut-être demain, ça commence mardi, quand je vais aller voir un film à 5 $ en spécial avec mon ami anonyme. Ben, c'est ça le problème. Fait que c'est ça le problème majeur. Fait que la TRD, c'est la solution. C'est un paradoxe, bien sûr. La TRD, bien sûr, ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Fait que dans la TRD, théorie d'intégration monétaire, ça contient bien cette théorie, bien sûr, pour avoir de la théorie. Fait que là, la TRD, bien sûr, c'est TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, qu'il faut faire l'implémentation. Fait que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. On va prendre toute la dette publique-privée ensemble. Mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000. Fait que toute la dette publique-privée, on doit faire de côte à côte. Mon 10 000, moi, j'ai pas de carte de crédit, j'ai une ligne de crédit à la Banque Royale. Fait que on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée. Mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000 de côte à côte. Toute la dette publique-privée, on va faire la conversion, bien sûr. Bien sûr, toute cette conversion, on va faire bien sûr dans un point de contention, bien sûr, pour le faire, bien sûr, dans cette conversion. Fait que toute la TRD, on va prendre ensemble, toute la TRD, on va prendre ensemble. Toute la dette publique-privée. Fait que tout cet argent-là, va avoir une nouvelle... On va faire une nouvelle monnaie de ça. On va faire la création d'une nouvelle monnaie qu'on va appeler, oui, il faut qu'on se base avec les États-Unis. On va faire parce que les États-Unis sont pareils dans la même situation économique financière. Fait que toute la dette publique-privée, tout cet argent-là, on va faire la création d'une nouvelle monnaie. Oui. Unité d'échange universel, on ne se souviendra pas en anglais, c'est pareil. U point unité, point échange universel. U. L'unité d'échange universel. U point unité, point échange universel. L'unité d'échange universel aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. On va faire la création de l'unité d'échange universel, car dans ma TRD, ça contient bien sûr la théorie d'intégration monétaire. La théorie d'intégration monétaire, bien sûr, c'est la théorie que les Européens ont fait l'implémentation dans les années 90 en Europe. Fait que c'est pour ça que je dis dans ma TRD, c'est inclus bien sûr cette théorie. Fait que c'est pour ça, dans ma TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, intègre en dedans d'elle la théorie d'intégration monétaire, ce qui est la théorie que les Européens ont faite. Mais nous, il faut qu'on le fasse en Amérique du Nord, à travers le Canada et les États-Unis ensemble, de manière binationale. Fait que bien sûr, cette conclusion qu'on va faire ensemble, la création de cette nouvelle monnaie, on va faire du bien commun, rebâtir l'infrastructure, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, finir avec la frontière, faire un recensement, faire bâtir les 44 tunnels dans le cas d'une guerre nucléaire, bien sûr, constituer les deux institutions complémentaires de partenariat public-privé, bien sûr, intégrer avec toutes les institutions de sécurité pour le service, sécurité et défense, soit l'armée du Dragon, l'armée impériale républicaine pour la sécurité, service et défense, nouvelle institution du 21e siècle, parallèlement à la Ligue de danse impériale, la République, qu'on va constituer la fusion avec les États-Unis, les 10 provinces, 50 États et 3 territoires dans ce complexe financier, l'entraînement physique et le tourisme ensemble. Les gens, vous êtes